across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. This is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. We're talking today about an attack on free speech. Graeme Linehan, the creator of Father Ted, an anti-trans activist, well, he has been arrested. 5 police officers arrested him at Heathrow because of 3 tweets that he had put out. We'll talk about that. We can't talk to him because he is banned from Twitter and banned from putting some of his opinions in the public domain, although he's written a long Substack article on it. One of the tweets was, if a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he has committed a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. That is what Graeme Linehan has tweeted, and that is what he's been arrested for. We'll talk about that. We'll talk to the Conservative Party about their plan to drill baby drill. We'll also talk to the Green Party about their new leader, who is a former hypnotherapist, who thinks that women can think their way to larger breasts. I'll be asking whether his speech as leader was something that inspired Baroness Natalie Bennett, or whether it made her feel very sleepy indeed. Lots to discuss here on Talk between now and 7 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is the number I want you to call. Get your voice on the air and let me know what you think about, especially about Graeme Linehan. I'll give you all the details in just a second. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss here on Talk. Stay with us. So Graeme Linehan has been arrested. You may know him. He's the creator of Father Ted. He's been interviewed on the station a number of times. He says, the moment I stepped off the plane at Heathrow, 5 armed police officers were waiting. Not 1, not 2, 5. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. In a country where paedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control, where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state has mobilised 5 armed officers to arrest a comedy writer for this tweet, and no, I promise you I'm not making it up. The tweets are, if a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act, said Graeme Linehan. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. He also tweeted a picture of trans rights activists and wrote at the top, a photo you can smell, and then a follow-up to that one, I hate them, misogynists and homophobes, F them. I'm not going to say the word that he has said, but it begins with F and you know what it is. So, should he have been arrested? What has happened? Well, the Metropolitan Police said on Monday, the 1st of September, that's today, at 1 o'clock, officers arrested a man at Heathrow Airport after he arrived on an inbound American Airlines flight. The man in his 50s was arrested on suspicion of inciting violence. This is in relation to posts on X. After being taken to police custody, officers became concerned for his health. He was taken to hospital. His condition is neither life-threatening nor life-changing. He has now been bailed pending further investigation. The arrest was made by officers from the MPS Aviation Unit, that's Metropolitan Police Service Aviation Unit. It is routine for officers policing airports to carry firearms. These were not drawn or used at any point during the arrest. And just a final point from the Substack that Graeme Linehan has written about this. He says, I was arrested at an airport like a terrorist, locked in a cell like a criminal, taken to hospital because the stress nearly killed me, and banned from speaking online, all because I made jokes that upset some psychotic cross-dressers. To me, this proves one thing beyond doubt. The UK has become a country that is hostile to freedom of speech, hostile to women, and far too accommodating to the demands of violent, entitled, abusive men who have turned the police into their personal goon squad. Well, Andrew Bowie is Shadow Scotland Secretary, Shadow Energy Minister. He's come on to talk about the North Sea and oil and gas drilling. Andrew, I promise I'll ask you about that in a moment, but I want your reaction to Graeme Linehan's arrest first, please.
Yeah, obviously it sounds like it's complete overreach by the Metropolitan Police and a complete overreaction. It's quite worrying, actually. Disregarding, whether or not I would have been comfortable tweeting what Graeme Linehan tweeted or indeed said, put that to one side. We live in a democracy where we value free speech above all else, and he wasn't saying anything illegal. Controversial, yes, but illegal, no. And I think it's incredible that he has been treated in this way, that he has been met with such overwhelming force, frankly, from the Metropolitan Police, given what we do allow to be said online, far worse by people in this country, and what is allowed to be said on the streets of this country. So I'm very worried about this situation. I think it bodes very ill for our ability to still describe the United Kingdom as a country where we can exercise our right to free speech.
Andrew, you as a person in public life, me as a sort of Y-list celebrity, I'm not sure, someone who a few people know, I've received far worse than that online. I'm sure you have as a politician.
Absolutely.
And I've received death threats and things. I've reported, some of it to Twitter, some not. But actually being arrested for saying kick someone in the balls. I mean, we had the Sun front page yesterday was about the Queen of England, Camilla, hitting someone in that area with her shoe.
Yeah, look, it's, as I said, it's deeply troubling. Actually, I mean, and the double standard when you see politicians of all stripes, regardless of party, politicians of all stripes being abused on social media, when you see some comments from extremist groups or individuals, be that supporting another side in the situation in Gaza or whatever it might be, whatever issue, you read far worse on social media than what Graeme Linehan tweeted. And I think that the fact that he's been treated in such a way, whatever your view, and I stress whatever your view, on the situation is deeply troubling for the United Kingdom and our ability to call this place a society where we can exercise free speech.
As promised, I will ask you about North Sea oil. I just want to take a look now at what your leader, Kemi Badenoch, said about the North Sea earlier today on a trip to Aberdeen.
Yeah.
We'll help people with their energy bills by making sure that we increase the supply. 100% of the gas that is taken from the North Sea is used in the UK. And what we're seeing right now with sky-high energy bills is a result of a net zero mandate that is simply not working. And we need both Labour and the SNP to change course. And you look at countries like Norway, who are drilling right in this very basin in the North Sea. We need to make sure that we're also able to provide supply. At the moment, European countries are still buying oil and gas from Russia. I think it would be a lot better if they bought it from Aberdeen.
Net zero, Andrew, was brought in by the Conservatives. It was brought in under Theresa May. Why have you U-turned on this issue?
Well, look, I mean, Kemi said back in March that the Conservative Party, was no longer committed to net zero by 2050. The fact is, Peter, when the situation changes, your position has to change. You know, we were in a situation in 2019. It was pre the Ukraine war, pre the weaponization of energy. We've got a situation now where, despite having the second highest amount of renewables on the grid of any country in Europe, we've got British people paying the highest bills in the developed world. We've got British businesses shutting up shop and moving overseas because it's too expensive to do business in the UK. And we've got a situation on oil and gas where we're having to import more and more from Qatar, from the USA, and from Norway, and in Norway's case, from the very same basin that Ed Miliband is preventing us from drilling in ourselves to keep the lights on in this country. That's absolutely absurd. We're losing revenue and we're losing jobs. And I'm speaking to you here at an oil and gas conference in Aberdeen where people are very concerned about the future of this industry, the future of this region, and the future of the United Kingdom's energy security. We can solve it all tomorrow if we got rid of the Energy Profits Levy, if we removed the ban on licences, and if we got away from these arbitrary dates and targets, mandates that were brought in, yes, admittedly by us, but whose time has had its day. We need to move forward with the spirit of optimism and let the oil and gas industry get back to what it does best, which is drilling and exploiting fossil fuels and keeping the lights on in this country.
The government have said exploring new fields would not take a penny off bills or improve energy security and would only accelerate the worsening climate crisis. They call it a crisis. I don't think it is. They say every family and business paid the price of the Conservatives' failure to secure the UK's energy. What would you say to that, Andrew?
Well, it's nonsense, it's deflection, it's completely removed from reality, and it's typical of this government who prioritises their eco-zealotry and their ideology over the everyday lives of British people. I'm speaking to you from a city where we're having a Grangemouth-sized event every month. Thousands of jobs are being lost. Companies are shutting up shop. The United Kingdom are losing the skills, the highly skilled individuals to other countries around the world. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Australia, Canada, Mexico. All countries where the oil and gas industry is flourishing. This is a made in the UK downturn. It's a made by Ed Miliband downturn, and it has to be reversed. We need to see more investment in the North Sea. We need to secure jobs here in the United Kingdom, and we need to become energy secure. By the way, if we do all that, bills will start to come down. So yeah, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
I want to ask you about an amazing idea to sort out the migration system. We're going to send people text messages. It's going to solve it completely if we just send them a text message. Let's have a look at what the Home Secretary, speaking to the BBC this morning, said about text messages to those who overstay their welcome. If this doesn't sort out migration, I don't know what will.
People should not be claiming asylum at the end of a student course. We need to clamp down on that kind of misuse, and that's why we're sending these messages, to be very clear to people. The asylum system is not for people who just want to extend their visas.
Do you think the text messages to people who've overstayed their visas is going to help solve migration in this country, Andrew?
Oh yeah, because, you know, Peter, I'm sure you like me, take note of every text message or WhatsApp message you get and act immediately on the instructions within that, especially one from a government that you might be trying to elude in order to stay in the country. I'm sure the text message strategy will work out really well.
So what is the solution, Andrew?
It'll work out just as well. It'll work out just as well as every other thing they've tried and failed to implement thus far.
Well, your solution didn't work. The Rwanda scheme was, you know,
we never tried it.
The country voted against it, Andrew. The country voted against it and voted for Labour. They cancelled it on the first day, and you know, you had 14 years to sort this out, and you didn't.
To be fair, we sorted out. So if you remember, back when we came into office in the early 2010s, the issue that we had was actually people coming across in the back of lorries and through the Channel Tunnel. We resolved that. We built a higher fence in Cali, we did deals, and we worked to resolve that. The solution regarding boats is a far more recent issue, and you're right, I acknowledge we didn't take the steps necessary to deal with it at the time. We did have, coming down the tracks very quickly, the Rwanda scheme, and we never got to even find out whether it would work. It's described as the failed Rwanda scheme. Not one plane took off because Labour cancelled it before they even could. We don't know whether the deterrent factor of that would have actually prevented anybody from coming across. And the biggest mistake Labour made, and this is what is unforgivable, is they cancelled that scheme without any plan whatsoever on how they were going to deal with the problem. That's why, instead of smashing the gangs, the only smashing we've seen is of the record numbers of people coming across in boats into this United Kingdom.
Zach Polanski is the new leader of the Green Party. Would you like to congratulate him?
Absolutely. I'm afraid I don't know anything about him whatsoever, but he's congratulations, Zach, on becoming the leader of Britain's 7th largest party.
Okay. It's interesting as well because in Parliament, Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister, has been talking about grooming gangs, and she said some interesting things actually about what she wants to happen with this inquiry that, of course, was so many people were saying for such a long time wanted to happen. Let's just take a look at a clip of her in the House of Commons now.
Today I can announce that Operation Beaconport has been established. It will be overseen by the National Crime Agency and delivered in partnership with policing, including the National Police Chiefs Council and the CSE Task Force and the Tackling Organised Exploitation Programme. For the very first time, this new national policing operation is bringing together all of the relevant policing partners under one operation to ensure a swift and specialist law enforcement response to grooming gang offending. This collaborative approach is ensuring that long-term investigative capability built across police and best practice is standard, ending an unacceptable postcode lottery for victims and survivors. This new national operation will eliminate inconsistencies on how cases are handled across forces and ensure that there is no hiding place for perpetrators.
Jess Phillips says in this inquiry, no stone will be left unturned. That will make difficult conversations for people. If people are found by our court system to have undermined and committed disgrace in public office, then of course they should be sent to prison. Is this something on which you have common ground with Labour?
Yeah, but the hypocrisy is staggering. You know, this is the same government minister that insisted that we didn't even need a national inquiry, that insisted that there was nothing to see here, and that in all of these towns across England there wasn't a problem, and that if there was a problem it had already been dealt with, and why do we need to revisit something which has already been... It's the brass neck, frankly, of these ministers.
Are you happy with how the Conservatives dealt with it when they were in office?
Well, we actually moved a very long way towards getting to the stage of having a national inquiry. I'm not saying that we did everything in our that we should have. I'm sure there are areas where we could have gone further. But one of the things we did do immediately on as a result of the most recent details coming out was call for a national inquiry. And Jess Phillips, who now stands up in Parliament and brags about or waxes lyrical about the national inquiry, the national police investigation, the national service is going to be available, was one of the very ministers who was most vociferous in saying that we didn't even need an inquiry into what had happened, which is shocking and shameful. But I'm glad they finally come to the conclusion that they have.
Just finally, Andrew, in regard to another matter with Labour, Angela Rayner says that she can't give all the details about her homes and her financial arrangements because of a court order that we haven't been told about and probably won't be told about. What should happen with her, and do you think she's actually done anything wrong? Do you think she's actually broken the law?
Whether or not she's broken the law is, I suppose, a matter of debate. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert in this, I don't know. But again, it's the hypocrisy. I mean, this is a party that's going out of its way to tax wealth, to make it difficult for people to move on up the property ladder, who's talking about a mansion tax, talking about an extra tax for people trying to sell their homes, punishing employers. God knows what we're going to see in the budget in a few months' time. And she's taking advantage of tax loopholes to rise up the property ladder, expand her own personal wealth. Fair play to her. She should maybe join the Conservative Party. But it's absolutely ridiculous for her to take a position in public, lecturing Britain and punishing people who are trying to make a success and build a better future for their children, and then do something completely different in private. It's not so much the legality, it's the hypocrisy. And that's always what gets you.
Andrew, thank you. That's Andrew Bowie there, is the Shadow Scotland Secretary and Shadow Energy Minister. What do you make of what he said? 0344 499 1000. Clayton in Dartford says, can anyone figure out the difference between what Graeme Linehan said and what Queen Camilla actually did to a sex pest, i.e. whacking him in his plums with her shoe heel? So should the Queen now be arrested for actually doing what Graeme Linehan talked about? That's a very fair point. Trevor in Harrow says, with the arrest of Graeme Linehan, I can see the establishment is completely exposed for what I actually see as fascism. A word often overused, but this is what I see in plain sight. What I don't understand is why he would be stopped from speaking on social media. What complication would that have on the case? And Don in Chelmsford says, the arrest of Mr Linehan by 5 armed police officers is really sinister. We're living in Orwell's 1984, says Don. Jill's giving me a ring from Cornwall, 0344 499 1000. Jill, thanks for your call. What would you like to say?
Well, Peter, I'm glad talk is there. I really am, for a start. That's
we're the only people talking about Graeme Linehan. I haven't seen. I can't speak for every piece of news that's out there, but I have not seen it on Sky News. No. I have not seen it on the BBC. This is a disgrace. It's happening today in 2025, Jill.
Absolute disgrace. You cannot have. What is the point of us having a brain of our own, or a mouth of our own, and an opinion of our own? If we have a difference of an opinion, providing it's said politely and everything else, there is no reason why you can't think differently than what this government is telling us that we have to think. And anyone who says anything different than what this government says we are allowed to say, their behaviour with that, the control over the police arresting people for thinking differently, I think it's absolutely disgusting. I am so horrified by it. And Keir Starmer and his bunch of... I've got to find a word to...
Yeah, they can say at 4:20 in the afternoon. I know what you mean. Let's go with clowns, perhaps.
Well, that's quite soft, really, considering, but there you go. I am horrified by them. I really am. They're two-faced. And what is the point of going to school and learning things and having an opinion about how things are done and everything else, if when you get out of college and you get into the world where you have a voice in your head and a thought in a voice in your mouth and a thought in your head, if you're not allowed to voice that, if you don't, I'm just horrified the fact that I can't think differently than what I'm told to, but they will not shut me up. And
nor will you ever be shut up by this station, Jill. No. You're welcome to call anytime. We are the home of free speech, and thank you for that. We'll debate this more with Peter Blexley. He's going to be in the studio in just a second, our crime commentator, to talk through this whole thing, get all the details, see exactly what's happened, and then you can let us know your thoughts. You can do it now if you like, or you can just listen to Peter and let us know what he's given his analysis. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
about some tinkering around family applications from asylum seekers. People actually are probably running out of patience to hear about any more asylum seekers, never mind their families. I think people are just sick of the whole concept of it, not because we are not, as a nation, pretty generous and wanting to help the world's most oppressed, but because this system has been so systematically abused and exploited that it's lost all credibility.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason has been in touch with a voice note on Graeme Linehan's arrest. This is what Jason has had to say.
I want to know who made the allegation against Graeme Linehan, who reported it to the police. I doubt very much there's a policeman sitting there and he's been reported as a victim. So who reported it, who started the ball rolling, and why? The 5 policemen, too many coppers, they're armed at the airport, that's normal anyway. But who made the allegation? Who's the person that started this off?
Thanks for that, Jason. Well, Graeme Linehan has said has alleged anyway, on his Substack blog that he believes it is a woman called Lindsay Watson, who is a former police officer, but actually a man, called Lindsay Watson, who was fired for his online conduct, apparently. But we don't know if that's true, and also we don't know whether Lindsay Watson has any comment on that. Someone who definitely has comments is Peter Blexley, who's with me, former Metropolitan Police detective, who is our crime commentator here in the station. Peter, great to see you in the studio. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
This is, just to take us through some of the issues. I read this out a little bit earlier, but I just want to do it again. The moment I stepped off the plane at Heathrow, says Graeme Linehan, 5 armed police officers were waiting, not 1, not 2, 5. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. In a country where paedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control, where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state has mobilised 5 armed officers to arrest a comedy writer for this tweet, and no, I promise you I'm not making it up. And the tweet that he had put out was on the 20th of April at 2 minutes past 8 in the morning, where he said, if a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. Also, on the 19th of April, the day before, there was a protest with trans activists, and he wrote, a photo you can smell. Then as a follow-up to that one, he said, I hate them, misogynists and homophobes, F them. So that is what Graeme Linehan has been arrested for. Peter, what do you make of this?
2 words really spring to mind, and they're symptomatic of policing as a whole. The first one is overkill in terms of the numbers. Now, I know this is going to be a little bit of a policing history lesson, but please bear with me. Back in the day, late 70s, early 80s, we went out and patrolled the streets on our own. I can hear the howls of derision now. Society's changed. Police officers couldn't do that nowadays. I hear all of that, but I'm just saying what happened then was that the public actually appreciated that in the dead of night, there I was as a young man, and colleagues as well, patrolling alone to face whatever dangers we came across or got called to. And because we were vulnerable in that regard, the public had some respect for us, because they thought to themselves, I wouldn't be doing that this time of night. And now I'll come to the relevance of this arrest. There's no need for 5 officers to be there. They hunt in packs these days, so often. You see the contrast between hunting in a pack and patrolling on your own. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm sure that 2 police officers could have handled this situation quite easily, the arrest of a man in his late 50s. And let's face it, Mr. Linehan, I'm sure he wouldn't argue with this, does not have the lifestyle habits of an Olympic athlete. OK? He's not going to start shifting furniture and be too much of a physical challenge.
Careful, Peter, you'll get arrested for saying that.
Yes, of course I will, right? So that's the first thing. Overkill in terms of the numbers. I think it's also borne out of the fact that the police are losing the skill to say, excuse me, sir, could you step aside here? We just need to have a word, please. You know, those communication skills, I think, are being lost in policing. And the second really important point as well is overreach. This is overreach by our police. We know that social media platforms have algorithms that will prevent certain stuff being posted online, OK? All right, they're not perfect, and they're not the law of the land, of course, but there are certain algorithms that are improving as governments bring increasing pressure upon social media platforms to police themselves. But now we live in the age where to be offended is almost a crime in itself. And of course, it is not a crime to be offended. It is not a crime to be caused alarm, harassment or distress by itself. That has to be coupled with some other kind of act. So we're getting too fluffy, we're getting too flaky. The police are overreaching what the public want them to do, and consequently their popularity and respect is tanking, and it is overkill in terms of the numbers they send.
What's the actual bit of these tweets that you think he's been arrested for? Do you think it is the bit where he says punch him in the balls? Is he saying that these people smell? I mean, we're going to start arresting 7-year-olds for saying, you know, you smell, therefore I don't like you?
Mr. Linehan, I feel unfairly, gets introduced in headlines as creator of Father Ted. He is a colossus of the comedy world. And if anybody goes onto IMDb, that's a movie and television database, and look at his back catalogue, it is unbelievable. And there's some really, really funny stuff out there that he's created in the past. I think our police are perhaps, I don't know if these are exactly the tweets for which he was arrested, so I'm going to tread a little bit carefully here.
He alleges that.
I know, he alleges that they are.
We don't know for sure.
We don't know for definite. But to make a gag about kicking someone in the groin, the testicles, whatever it may be, it's a gag. I don't read that tweet of his as a call to arms to suddenly put steel toe cap boots on, rush out onto the streets and start kicking people in the testicles. I don't read it that way. I don't see it that way. Mr. Linehan has and does enter into some very fruity debates and discussions on social media, the like of which I would largely swerve, although, of course, I can be potty-mouthed myself. I will, you know, readily admit to that. Yeah. But I think this is quite possibly overreach, overkill, and it will be extremely interesting to see if any charges are forthcoming. If they are not, then once again, the police need to look themselves very long and very hard in the mirror.
When you were a copper, Peter, at what stage, if people rang up and their complaint was vexatious or was just something that you just thought, look, this is never going to result in a charge, or this isn't illegal, what would you say to that person? Would you just say, look, I'm sorry, thank you for letting us know, but this is just something we're not going to act on? I mean, at what point do you say to the public, just because you make a complaint doesn't mean we have to do something?
No, and the best sort of situation that I can try to apply here would be if we got called to a dispute between neighbours. That was the kind of thing that would happen, where you'd have two parties who may have been arguing, falling out over something that essentially was not a crime, or certainly in our experience or with it using our discretion did not warrant wasting our time on arresting people. And we had an expression that was handed out a lot of the time called words of advice. Words of advice were given, sometimes very forcefully, sometimes with the occasional expletive thrown in just to ensure that you were grabbing the person's attention properly and robustly from time to time.
Yes.
But invariably, when words of advice were given to warring neighbours, there was a warning delivered at the end of it. And that was, if I get called back here, this will be a very different situation. Are you both listening to me? Thank you. Now get along. Neighbourliness is next to godliness, and I do not want to come back here.
I mean, I was quite scared by that, to be honest, Peter. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Just on Graeme Linehan as well, just a little bit more of a substack. I was arrested at an airport like a terrorist, locked in the cell like a criminal, taken to hospital because the stress nearly killed me. His blood pressure or his heart rate was over 200 at one stage, which is getting into where a stroke is, and banned from speaking online, all because I made jokes that upset some psychotic cross-dressers. To me, this proves one thing beyond doubt: the UK has become a country that is hostile to freedom of speech, hostile to women, and far too accommodating to the demands of violent, entitled, abusive men who've turned the police into their personal goon squad. Well, we're asking the question this afternoon: is free speech under attack in the UK? Let me know your thoughts about this. 0344 499 1000. Peter, I mean, you speak such great sense. What do you think happens next here? Do you think it just goes away, or what happens?
The police will conduct their investigation, of course. They will probably submit a file to the CPS, and they will make a decision upon whether to charge or not.
Yeah.
That is kind of how things work. And we shall wait and see. I don't know whether Mr. Linehan was bailed to return on another date. They may, of course, have applied bail conditions to him.
Well, he's not allowed to tweet. That's the only bail condition, he says, anyway.
Yes.
Is that he's not allowed to tweet. So he's gone on Substack. Various people have tweeted in support of him, including the Free Speech Union, but he himself is not allowed to go on Twitter.
Now that, in itself, is an outrage, because it is a fundamental principle of English law, British law in essence, that you are innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
So why on earth can they issue a bail condition that prevents him from carrying on speaking on social media? That is absolute overreach. Once again, that is the scandalous thing which we can speak of as a fact.
Yeah.
That is massive, massive overreach. And we're seeing this handed out by the police increasingly and worryingly. That is just outrageous and should not happen. And I would like to see Mr. Linehan take legal advice to challenge that bail condition, wheresoever it needs to go, whether it be in the courts. However, that is just outrageous.
Peter, you speak such sense. Imagine someone wanted to hear more sense from you, especially on some sort of theatre style scenario. What advice would you give them?
Go to peterblexley.com and buy tickets, please, for my tour of the UK next year.
Wonderful. Peter Blexley, our crime commentator, speaking such common sense. What do you think? Jane says this country is run by a load of clowns. As soon as the circus goes, the better. Resign, Prime Minister, and take your rotten government with you. And a Graeme Linehan, lots of people in touch. What about Jo Brand and what she said about Nigel Farage? Very good point, says Steve. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch. I just had a look at Twitter there during the break. Paul T. Butler says maybe Graeme Linehan being arrested by armed police is the point where people start sitting up and taking notice of what exactly our police are actually doing when it comes to freedom of speech. Peter Blexley is spot on at how it is being dealt with. Hashtag bonkers Britain. Another person says, I stand with Graeme Linehan. The Metropolitan Police are an absolute disgrace. Hashtag two-tier justice. Let's hear a voice note from Michael on Graeme Linehan.
I have a branch of the family that grew up under the East German regime, where one wrong opinion, one wrong word, failing to conform would lead to a knock on the door and you'd be put away for a very, very long time. It now looks as though we have a government that is changing laws and making it much easier to suppress opinion, to suppress our views in their quest for controlling us, and it needs to stop. And the more we fight back against it, the better the outcome will be.
Thank you for that, Michael. We're asking today, is free speech under attack in the UK? Because Graeme Linehan, the creator of Father Ted, has been arrested for 3 tweets critical of trans people. The most violent thing he seems to have advocated is kicking someone in the googlies, and certainly that is something that the Queen Camilla did with her shoe. And that was the front page of The Sun yesterday. So should she be arrested for that, for historical crimes? Are we going to throw the Queen of England in the chokey? Maybe we should do that. Ryan Saby is Deputy Political Editor of The Sun. Ryan, plenty of politics around today, but this is no doubt a political issue as well. And actually, Andrew Bowie has been on the programme already, the Shadow Scottish Secretary, saying that he thinks it's not illegal. What do you think of this story, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the reaction that we've just heard from Downing Street. If you want to take sort of the very top of what Downing Street are thinking.
Yes, please.
That they are saying that, look, they can't actually go into the operational matters of what the police are doing day to day, but interestingly they do say, and this is very coded, so let's try and work our way through this. They are saying that the police should concentrate on the sort of real crimes, the day-to-day crimes, such as shoplifting or burglaries. That's where the police interest and the sort of police responsibilities and their time should be spent. So I think we can take from what Downing Street are saying this afternoon that they're not particularly impressed with this arrest.
So Ryan, am I right, just so our viewers and listeners can get this? I think we know the background to this, but just so all our viewers and listeners can talk about the way that Number 10 operates. So we're both members of this thing called the Lobby. It's the Westminster journalists, presumably an afternoon lobby, the briefing from the Prime Minister's official spokesman. Presumably you were there, or one of your colleagues was there, and the spokesman was asked about this, and that's what they said. They essentially said the Metropolitan Police, go and solve some real crime.
Yeah, that's right. So just to explain what happens, twice a day, journalists like myself traipse over to Downing Street, where we are given a briefing by the Prime Minister's official spokesman, and we can ask that official any question of the day, any single topic that comes up. And obviously this is of heightened interest to both our readers, your listeners, and viewers. And the Prime Minister's spokesman actually declined, as you'd expect, to talk about the actual arrest, but they said it was an operational matter. But just reading it here, they said they should be tackling antisocial behaviour, shoplifting, street crime. That's kind of where their focus should be. So I think that's a sort of clear indication of what the thinking is from Downing Street.
Very interesting. Let's talk as well about other things that are happening in politics today. The Tories pledging to get all oil and gas out of the North Sea. What's been the reaction to that, Ryan?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things from what Kemi Badenoch, she was obviously up in Scotland, is that she's trying to create this sort of clear dividing line between her and the government. She has really, really struggled to sort of make any kind of headway. Her leadership just seems to be sort of flapping about in the wind. Really, we're not really seeing anything from her. We've barely set eyes on her in the past 6 weeks or so over the summer recess. And I think this is one of the sort of key issues that she's actually sort of gained some traction with in recent months. It was back in March where she said that reaching net zero by 2050 was impossible, and she's just adding to that. So where the government have said there's going to be absolutely no new licenses issued, Kemi Badenoch says, look, we should get as much oil and gas out of the North Sea as we can. It's a resource there that is untapped. There can be much use made of it. There could be great returns to the Treasury in terms of tax. So why isn't it being looked at? So I think that's where the sort of dividing lines are with the government on that, and that's just one of the few issues that Kemi Badenoch thinks that is good for her and good for her supporters, and just try and rate. I mean, we're talking to the fact that we're trying to raise her profile, because she's really struggled since she became leader to sort of get any headway, as I say.
One person who's had wall-to-wall coverage today is Zach Polanski. He is the new leader of the Green Party. He, as a hypnotherapist, told your paper in 2019 that women could think their way to having larger breasts. He later apologised for those comments. Will he be taken seriously in Westminster?
I mean, that was obviously, that original interview was done about 12 years or so ago, and that is something that's going to...
I thought it was 2019, maybe I've got that wrong.
2019, right? I think it's 2019. Yeah, no, I think he may have made some comments a bit before that, but right. I think the key point on Zach Polanski is what he's going to do politically, in terms of, is he going to fall into line behind Jeremy Corbyn? Jeremy Corbyn setting up this new party on the left. It looks like Zach Polanski really wants to set up some kind of alliance with him. Now, he said it's a bit too early to say how formal that will be, but I think the implications for the Prime Minister and Downing Street could be quite severe, actually, because Reform in particular, they were saying not that long ago that a Jeremy Corbyn outfit could take 8, 9, 10% off the government in terms of the opinion polls, and you add the Greens, who are sort of polling around 4 or 5% as well. It really builds this kind of coalition on the left of British politics. And I think, even though the Greens have only just got a handful of MPs in Parliament, I think Labour and perhaps the Lib Dems as well will be looking over their shoulder when this result.
Absolutely. I wonder as well if I could ask you a little bit about Jess Phillips and what she's been saying today on the rape gangs inquiry, some movement there.
Yeah, no, I think that one of the key criticism, the thing that I picked up on this, that there's barely been any sort of movement on this, or you may correct me on this, Peter, but I think there's been very little progress on this in the past few years or so. So
no, you're right.
I think and I think that's where Jess Phillips has been, perhaps the utmost campaigner on this issue ever since she came into Parliament back in 2015, and she spent her sort of professional life before that working on such issues. So I think there's one issue where the government, a year into government, need to make some progress. Keir Starmer yesterday was talking about phase 1 of his government was trying to find and identify the problems. Phase 2 really has to be delivery, and I think Jess Phillips is the sort of person who can deliver on this, for the rest of this Parliament.
Okay, well, we will see what happens. Listen, thank you for your thoughts, Ryan. That's Ryan Saby there, who's Deputy Political Editor and Economics Editor at The Sun. We're going to be talking about Graeme Linehan quite a lot during this programme. We'd love your thoughts on what has happened. The creator of Father Ted has been arrested. 5 police officers have arrested him for tweets where he's been critical of trans people. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Plenty of people getting in touch, including Mike in Lincoln, who says, when hearing about Graeme Linehan's arrest, I was at Heathrow. I find myself astounded that the ruling from the Supreme Court about what constitutes a woman should be using women-only spaces seems to have escaped the Metropolitan Police. Either that or they're willfully ignoring the law. We've already had a senior politician, Andrew Bowie, the shadow Scottish Secretary, saying that he doesn't think it's a breach of the law. Leslie said, Jill was spot on earlier in the phone call you had, Peter. This government are not clowns. You laugh at clowns, not cry in despair. Sean says, I'm going to apply for asylum in the USA. It isn't safe to have an opinion in this country that differs from the left-wing establishment. We're as bad as Russia, says Sean in Bridlington. Here we go again, arresting someone for a tweet. They have not learned the lesson from the Lucy Connolly debacle, says Margaret in Birmingham. And Nick says, so the police don't turn up if your car is nicked, your house is broken into, or your phone is pinched, but say the wrong thing, bang, you're off to the clink. We're becoming more like North Korea every day. And Mark says it is absolutely amazing. It's funny how the police are very fast at arresting someone for a tweet, yet I'm part of a dog charity where a person in the charity stole thousands of pounds. It took the police over a year to make an arrest. Alison says, how can Starmer say we have free speech after arresting Graeme Linehan? It shows the police are looking at certain people's tweets. I think an email to Trump or Vance is called for. Simon says, how do you get the police in the first place? They normally only come out to 999 calls. This is due to the internet police. And a final one before the break from Betty, who says Graeme must have been put on a red list following a complaint. Then he was pinged on a passenger list. Shame the government can't do the same with 130,000 with no time left on the visa, or asylum seekers who go home for the holidays to the country they fled. The US media will be all over us over this. Love, Betty. Well, Betty, it's a very interesting one because the UK media are nowhere on this. I think we are one of the very, very few media outlets, The Sun as well, a few others that are reporting this. I have the BBC and Sky in my sight line. If they report it in the next, between now and 7 o'clock, I promise you I will tell you. I know my producer Ryan's going to keep an eye on it as well. As far as I know, a lot of the mainstream media aren't reporting this. We are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about this attack on free speech. We're going to have a debate later on in the programme. We're going to hear from you as well. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
I think people are just sick of the whole concept of it, not because we are not, as a nation, pretty generous and wanting to help the world's most oppressed, but because this system has been so systematically abused and exploited that it's lost all credibility.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Paul in Great Yarmouth has been in touch. He says, we constantly talk about how wrong being arrested for comments and tweets online, but nothing ever changes. People, innocent people, exercising their free speech are getting rounded up, thrown in prison and labelled criminals. We can't keep talking about what is wrong. It needs to change now by holding those accountable for issuing these arrest warrants and taking them to court and get them removed, including the officers making an obviously unlawful arrest, says Paul. Terry in Slough says, I'm in my 70s and when I was growing up, we used to respect the police, but the police are becoming a joke now. That's Terry in Slough. Well, maybe one issue Border Force can deal with is the Home Office threatens to deport foreign students overstaying visas. This is the grand plan, the amazing idea, an innovative solution that Yvette Cooper has. Send them text messages. That's what she said to the BBC this morning.
People should not be claiming asylum at the end of a student course. We need to clamp down on that kind of misuse, and that's why we're sending these messages to be very clear to people. The asylum system is not for people who just want to extend their visas.
About 132,000 adult students and their families are in the UK legally, but nearing the end of their studies, so coming to the end of their courses. They're going to be contacted by the Home Office via text and email, warning they will be removed if they remain in the country unlawfully. Alp Mehmet is with us. He's chairman of Migration Watch UK. Is this the silver bullet, Alp?
Forgive me, Peter. You know, whenever this government announces a crackdown and they will stamp out this and they will do that, you can bet your money that you don't need to hold your breath because nothing will happen.
Are you saying these people would be quaking in their boots to get a text message from the Home Office?
I don't know about quaking in their boots. They're probably quaking from laughter in their boots, but they're certainly not likely to be afraid of being removed. Peter, can I just... We've just done some work on students. We published a paper last week. Can I give you some numbers?
Go ahead.
On why this is critically important? Overseas students, international students, form something like 45%, getting on for 50% of all visas issued. Those who came here over the last 3-4 years, something like 560,000 of them we know have stayed on beyond the permission granted them. We know that over the coming couple of years, the likelihood is that of the 2.1 million that entered in the past 3 years for studies, something like 1.2 million are projected to stay on. These are huge numbers. At any given time, there are 750,000 students, overseas students here at any given time. Think of the houses, the roofs over their heads that they need. So, yeah, it's critically important to tackle what has become a scam, frankly. Thousands of students coming from overseas, little check on them. We have effectively given universities the authority to recruit as many as they like, and they say whether or not people can come here. But that is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. We've got to put a cap on the students coming here. We've got to say, no, we will decide. Okay. We, the government, the Home Office will decide, and not leave it to universities. We've got to stop this business of 2 years to work here after you've finished your studies, having attended really mediocre universities, low-ranking universities. This has got to stop.
Alp, in your opinion, has anything the Home Office done, has announced, and Yvette Cooper has announced in the last 6 weeks when she wasn't interrailing with Ed Bowles, will it make any difference? Will it bring things to a head? Will it change the system?
No, I am absolutely certain that nothing will happen. What is worse, I think, Peter, is that because they will fail, because these proposed policies really will never reach fruition. They'll never be implemented anyway, because migrants know that. And I refer to students as migrants as well, because that's really the primary intention of people coming here to study, is to work and stay indefinitely. But because all these different proposals will fail, all it does is encourage more to come. So yeah, I'm afraid I have no confidence at all that anything that Yvette Cooper has suggested will work.
Alp, thank you. That's Alp Mehmet there, Chairman of Migration Watch UK. Thank you to Kate in Warwickshire, who says, I stand with Graeme Linehan. He's spoken out when most were or are far too cowardly. He's a pro-women activist, though not anti-trans, although you can't be pro-women without offending the zealots. That's Kate in Warwickshire saying that. Plenty of messages like that. We're going to talk about this a lot more. Maybe you want to respond to what Alp has said there. Give us a shout. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll take more of your calls in the next hour here on Talk. Stay with us.
My message to people
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, it's Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. Just gone 5 o'clock and the Father Ted creator Graeme Linehan has been arrested for tweets about trans people. 5 officers arrested him at Heathrow Airport. He has been bailed. He says it's a disgrace. Lots of our viewers and listeners say that too. That's our main story today. We've been talking to the Shadow Scotland Secretary, Andrew Bowie. He says that he doesn't believe that Mr Linehan has broken the law. We'll talk to Natalie Bennett as well, the former leader of the Green Party. They've got a new leader. He believes and has said publicly previously that women can be hypnotised into making their breasts larger. Yes, really. Will he go into some sort of coalition with Jeremy Corbyn's as yet unnamed party? We'll talk about that. We'll also get all the sport this hour as well, and we will talk later in the show to Matthew Hulbert, who is a lefty commentator who's going to talk about his view, and he thinks that Graeme Linehan should have been arrested. Also, Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister, says grooming gangs failure, officials deserve to go to jail. Lots to discuss between now and 7 o'clock. Maggie Oliver will be with us to talk about that last story. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a voice note, a few of those coming up in just a second, on 0344 499 1000. Same number for WhatsApp, text messages, and you can ring me on the same number as well. Plenty to discuss. Stay with us here on Talk. So, just to give you, if you're just tuning in, I'll give you some of the details of what has happened. Graeme Linehan, Father Ted creator, very well known for his views on trans. He was arrested by armed police officers at Heathrow Airport for writing gender-critical posts on social media. He came up with Father Ted, the IT crowd, Black Books. He's become a vocal critic of the trans rights movement in recent years. He has written on Substack about this. He claims he was detained at an airport by 5 officers after returning from Arizona. This is, he says, about 3 tweets posted in April. I'm going to read you the tweets that he says he's been arrested over in just a second. He said, "The moment I stepped off the plane at Heathrow, 5 armed officers were waiting, not 1, not 2, 5. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. In a country where paedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control," says Mr. Linehan, "where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state has mobilised 5 armed officers to arrest a comedy writer for this tweet, and no, I promise you, I'm not making this up." In the tweet on the 20th of April at 2 minutes past 8 in the morning, he wrote, "If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls." The day before, on the 19th of April, there was a gathering of pro-trans activists, which he tweeted simply the photograph and said, "A photo you can smell." A follow-up to that one was a few minutes later, I think, and he said, "I hate them, misogynists and homophobes, FM, as in EM, as in them." So that is what he tweeted. So is free speech under attack in the UK? We've got another person, now quite a prominent person, who has been arrested for his tweets. The only condition of his bail is that he doesn't come on Twitter and doesn't write things on Twitter. You've been reacting. Ed has been in touch with a voice note. This is what Ed has to say.
"I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but Graeme Linehan was returning from America after being on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he told everyone the nonsense going on in this country under this government. So, do you think that's just a coincidence that they picked him up on the way back?"
Very interesting thought there, Ed. Maddie's been in touch too with a voice note.
"It's such a shame about Graeme. He hasn't broken any laws, so I don't know why 5 policemen were sent there to arrest him. I'd like to know how much that cost us taxpayers, as locally where I live, you can't get a policeman for love nor money if you've been burgled or there's been a shop theft. I wish Graeme well, and I love your show, Peter."
Maddie, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Jack's been in touch with a voice note as well.
In regards to the government coming out and saying about the police needing to essentially focus on real crimes, it just stinks, to be honest. To me, it just feels like, oh, we know we've absolutely ballsed up. We better try and grovel back a little bit of what we can, you know. It stinks to me.
Thank you, Jack. Well, earlier, the Shadow Scotland Secretary, Andrew Bowie, for the Conservatives, he spoke to me about the arrest of Graeme Linehan. This is what he said.
It sounds like it's complete overreach by the Metropolitan Police and a complete overreaction. It's quite worrying, actually. Disregarding, whether or not I would have been comfortable tweeting what Graeme Linehan tweeted or indeed said, put that to one side. We live in a democracy where we value free speech above all else, and he wasn't saying anything illegal. Controversial, yes, but illegal, no. And I think it's incredible that he has been treated in this way. He has been met with such overwhelming force, frankly, from the Metropolitan Police, given what we do allow to be said online. Far worse, by people in this country and what is allowed to be said on the streets of this country. So I'm very worried about this situation. When you see some comments from extremist groups or individuals, be that supporting another side in the situation in Gaza or whatever it might be, whatever issue, you read far worse on social media than what Graeme Linehan tweeted. And I think that the fact that he's been treated in such a way, whatever your view, and I stress whatever your view, on the situation is deeply troubling for the United Kingdom and our ability to call this place a society where we can exercise free speech.
Shadow Scotland Secretary Andrew Bowie speaking to me a little bit earlier then. Well, Mo Lovatt is producer of the Battle of Ideas Festival. Mo, thank you for joining me today. What do you make of this?
So every time we hear of one of these cases, I think surely this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is outrageous. And I think this again, now God knows if I'll be proved right. I mean, Graeme Linehan is a very high-profile figure, and we've had senior politicians, including the Prime Minister, weighing in on the issue now. I'd be very interested to hear what your commentator later on, who's going to defend the police's action, has to say, because if you look at social media and across the board, left over right, everybody's sort of outraged by what's happened to Graeme Linehan. So whether this will be the case that finally brings our police into check, because quite simply you cannot arrest people for what they say. There was nothing in those tweets that were incitement to violence, nothing. There was a bit of standard advice to women. If you get approached by a man in a female-only space, that's standard. Kick him in the, cervical region. That is, that's standard advice.
It's also something. It's also advice that the Queen of England has taken. Camilla was on the front page of the Sun yesterday, having told someone who then told an author that apparently she was sexually assaulted a number of decades ago on public transport. Queen Camilla then took her shoe and hit the person in that region with the heel of the shoe, which I imagine was very sore and completely correct as a course of action. Yet she did it, whereas Graeme Linehan simply said to do that. But she's not been arrested.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I think Maddie, one of your callers earlier, made the point about when there's real crimes, physical crimes, crimes of property happening, you can't get the police out for love nor money. But when it's related to speech, and let's face it, it only goes one way. There's been very few, if any, I can think of arrests over people saying punch a turf. It tends to go one way. And I think this probably goes way back to Stonewall's influence on the police force. So, but I think one of the things about these cases, Peter, is, quite often you hear it said that, the process is the punishment. So no matter whether charges are brought now against Linehan, he's been through an ordeal today. He's been arrested in a heavy-handed way. Apparently, when he checked in Arizona, I think he was flying from, he'd already been red flagged, and he had to have his seat reallocated.
Yeah, he actually said something odd happened before I even boarded the flight in Arizona. This is the Substack that he's written. He's banned from Twitter at the moment, but not from Substack. He says, when I handed over my passport at the gate, the official told me I didn't have a seat and had to be re-ticketed. At the time, I thought it was just the sort of innocent snafu that makes air travel such a joy, but in hindsight, it was clear I'd been flagged. Someone, somewhere, probably wearing an unconvincing makeup and his sister or wife or mum's underwear, had made a phone call. That's what Graeme Linehan has written.
That's right, and I think some people have been pointing out that he's in the UK, because as we know, he's been working in Arizona with Andrew Doyle making this new sitcom. He's back in the UK now because he's facing a trial for another offence that obviously we won't talk about here for legal reasons. But my point goes back to, the punishment is the process. The fact that he's going through this just before he's about to face a trial on a different issue. His nerves must be shot, let alone his blood pressure. As we know, he's been taken to hospital.
His heart rate was over 200, which is often what happens when someone's having a stroke. So he was actually brought to hospital as a result of that. I mean, 5 police officers, okay, they're armed, they're in Heathrow, and that's it. As a matter of course, they weren't armed for this reason. They're armed simply because they're there. But 5 police officers to arrest a 57-year-old man who I'm sure Graeme Linehan wouldn't mind me saying is not exactly going to run away from them at the speed of Mo Farah.
No, exactly. No, I mean, I think, people are talking about it being an overreach. One of the things I think some of your viewers have been saying, I noticed that, you know, the Prime Minister has now kind of waded in. Not sure he should actually, but it's very interesting to see what a disarray the state's in. You've got one branch of the state kind of, you know, heavy-handed the law, and the other one saying, no, we believe in free speech. You know, a lot of people are saying, you know, put a call into Uncle Sam, or, you know, can't we speak to J.D. Vance and all the rest of it. The thing is, this is our country and this is our free speech, and it's up to us to defend it. So I don't think we can expect the big boys in America to keep having our back over these issues. You know, people are talking about the fact that he said nothing that's against the law, that the law is on his side, and all the rest of that is true. But as we see time and time again, it's up to us to vociferously and strongly stand up for free speech. But even people we disagree with, I mean, I happen to agree with him, although one of his tweets wasn't particularly, I think the smelly one wasn't particularly nice, but it doesn't really matter what he said.
Well, I mean, the smell,
you know,
I probably wouldn't have tweeted any of that stuff, Mo, but nonetheless, I absolutely defend people's right to do so. And calling people smelly, I mean, that's what 7-year-olds do in the playground. They say, oh, you're smelly, I don't want to play with you. I mean, we're going to start arresting 7-year-olds. We're through the looking glass here.
Well, you're right. I mean, I do think the state is becoming incredibly immature. They are behaving like 7-year-olds. You know, this is about hurty words. You know, these are words typed on a keyboard, put on a screen. I mean, if you really break it down to its basics, it's ridiculous. And, you know, we do live in a society where people are so quick to say, oh, I feel bullied or I feel unsafe. I mean, this is the language of the playground. You know, if you don't want the state getting too involved in your life, you don't want this kind of overreach, you have to behave like an adult, stand up for yourself, and stop claiming vulnerability or hurt feelings whenever somebody says something you don't like. But I mean, Graeme's no stranger to this kind of controversy, but you do wonder how long can you keep battering the same man? And it does feel, because of that red flag in Arizona and the court case coming up, it does feel that this is particularly personal, and whether it was a vexatious complaint, as Graeme, I think he's added a little bit to his Substack, saying he believes there was a vexatious complaint by a trans radical activist. Whether that's true or not, we don't know.
And in fairness to that activist, there hasn't been a response on that. Mo, listen, thank you. Really appreciate you talking to me today. That's Mo Lovett there, who's the producer of the Battle of Ideas Festival. And we're asking whether you think free speech is under attack in the UK. We're the home of free speech. You can say what you want within the law on this station, but what is the law in regard to this, especially when someone is being arrested on suspicion of inciting violence? I mean, if you say kick someone in the balls, is that inciting violence? I mean, it's just an expression, and the Queen of England did it. We know about that because we read about it yesterday. This is just a crazy situation. Thank you to Clive in Solihull, who says free speech is not under threat at all in this country as long as you're a woke left-wing trans person, if not button it. I am voting reform, says Clive in Solihull. Tim says if the gentleman's comments were not inciting violence, the courts have confirmed the biological sex issue. Would this not be wrongful arrest? I would go all the way to court. And Christina has said, am I the only one who thinks the government lit the blue touch paper on policing social media? It seems now the police have been thrown under the bus. The rules keep changing, but nobody lets the rank and file know. Christina, thank you very much. You've also paid me a nice compliment I'm not going to read out, but I really appreciate it nonetheless. And actually, it's very interesting because in the Substack that Graeme Linehan has written, he says the police themselves, for the most part, were consistently decent throughout this farce. Some were even Father Ted fans. Thank goodness the Catholic Church never had the police the special relationship granted, with the police the special relationship granted to trans activists. The male officers were mostly polite, but clearly nonplussed by the politics of it all, just doing their jobs, however insane these jobs had become. The female officers seemed more tuned in to what was actually happening. One mentioned the Sandy Peggy case in a certain way, and I realised I was among friends, even if I couldn't admit it. Let's go to the phones. Gary's in Leicester and has given me Leicestershire and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Gary, what do you make of this? You're very welcome to the programme today.
Oh, I'm outraged, Peter, absolutely outraged. And, first, just a couple of things off the top of my head. This bail condition thing, you can't tweet for 3 months. Sorry, innocent until proven guilty.
Well, exactly, and if that's not a clampdown on free speech, I don't know what is.
Oh, look, can we have all your phones and your laptops and all that, and we're going to sit on this for 3 months? Hang on, it's not, it's not a major inquiry. Get it done. But absolute outrage. But the interesting thing, timing. The one thing that makes me smile, laugh out loud, in fact, is it's just another day with another disastrous Labour policy where it all goes wrong. And I was looking, Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK. He's in the States at the minute.
Interesting.
Tomorrow.
Well, I'd be very surprised if Trump and JD Vance don't have something to say about this.
Well, hang on, it's more than that. He's giving evidence to the Congressional Judicial Committee.
Yes, I remember now. Yeah.
Yes, on erosion of free speech.
Yeah. Well, this is a perfect thing to talk about. Yeah.
Oh, don't you like the timing, Peter?
Yeah, very interesting one there.
Some of those clips. Some of those clips on X when Nigel gets into full flow. And the other thing, I'll just chuck into the mix, isn't Graeme Irish?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think he has British citizenship. I think he lives here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not doing an identity thing. I'm just saying he's an Irish citizen, and he's been in the States for a few weeks. I think he's got a project or two on the go over there.
That's right.
It'd be interesting if he had sent that X post or posted that X post while he was in the States. Given
well, no, it was before then. It was in April, but yeah, no, it is an interesting point. Certainly, Gary. Listen, thanks for your thoughts, Gary in Leicestershire. There, Sean in Northampton. Sean, what do you make of this? You're very welcome to the programme.
Hello, Peter. I love it when your programmes are. Really do.
Thank you.
Yeah, what do I think of it? I think this absolutely reeks that at this present time, this government is in charge of the judiciary. I think they're taking charge of the police commissioners. I mean, this thing at Gatwick or Heathrow Airport, whichever one it was.
Heathrow, yeah.
You might be, yeah, I mean, that stinks. The city can't send him down there. I mean, he hates everyone who's white and British. So
I'm sure he would deny that.
Well, yeah, and I'd say it again. The problem we've got at the moment is this is now going from being farcical and funny to bringing like a big black cloud over the country. People now are genuinely feeling for the first time in British history that we are now living under Big Brother. I'm not trying to be melodramatic.
No, you're not the first person who said that to me today. Absolutely not, Sean.
You know, we are. I mean, it's making me feel ill. When I listen. I know I keep listening. I listen to it every day, but it's making me feel ill that a man who's done absolutely nothing wrong can be picked up by 5 armed police in an airport. Now, I know, like you said, they were there anyway. But the bottom line is, you know, a year ago, one PCSO would have walked up to him and said, "Yeah, mate, you got put in the police station." We are being governed by these vile people, and no one seems to have a plan at the moment what we can do in the short term. I know that reform, you know, is really looking long term, but we're at the point now where we've got to be very careful, because if Starmer and people like him can govern what the judges do, they
Well, in fairness to Starmer, his spokesman has said that the police should get back to real police work. So maybe that's a tacit acknowledgement that this is absolutely a load of old rubbish.
Peter, if you believe that, you're not the man I thought you were. Starmer never opens that mouth without lying. The whole thing reeks that he's got involved in this. This is to tell people don't say a word about all this mess, because you will be arrested and you might go to prison. It's all about a fear factor, yeah, and it's absolutely wrong. It's illegal, it's immoral, and I think that him, your Rayner, you can't, all of them, I think they're vile. Absolutely vile.
Okay. Sean, thank you so much for your thoughts there. That's Sean in Northampton. I appreciate that. Graham's arrest, says Dave, was almost as comical as the Father Ted scripts he wrote. The UK is the new North Korea. Dave in Cardiff says, "Stop calling Her Majesty the Queen of England. I'm from Wales. She's my queen too," says someone in Cardiff. So thank you for that. I will, of course, do that, and of course the entire Commonwealth. Yvonne says, "I have given in the past the same advice to my granddaughters as our brave Queen used. This debacle is pure sour grapes." We're talking about Camilla, who used her heel of her shoe to attack someone who had sexually assaulted her by, you know, hitting him in the groinal region. Fiona says 5 armed officers at the cost of what to the taxpayer? It's the government's job to investigate this, as they don't seem shocked like most of the people. But we'll ask another politician what she thinks about this. Baroness Bennett, Natalie Bennett, will be with us in just a second. The Green Party's got a new leader. What could it mean for the left wing of British politics? We'll talk to her in a second. Stay with us.
walking into food shortages and into food inflation. And the sad reality is they should be protecting the poorer people in this nation, but it's the poorer people in this nation that'll suffer because they won't be able to afford good, nutritious food.
Spot on.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Betty, who says, maybe for balance, note that the US is restricting visas based on social media posts as well. I agree with them. If you get a visa, you respect the country you're in, but oppression swings both ways, says Betty. James says, by arresting people for tweets, making everyone worried about what they say, apart from talking about the weather. I have some controversial views on the weather. I despise all weather forecasters, apart from John Hammond and Joe Wheeler, who is amazing and a total hero. Heather says, this non-crime hate should be abolished so we can have freedom of speech and freedom to speak our minds and to think for ourselves, and only Reform UK will abolish non-crime hate. Tad says there are 4 words that sum up this Labour government, totally lacking in credibility. It doesn't matter what they say or what they promise, they have shot their bolt. I suggest we start from there. Only their wholesale resignation will clear the way of the miasma. Well, someone who's not happy with the government, someone who's not happy with a couple of other political parties. What about the Green Party? They now have a new leader. His name is Zach Polanski, and we can take a look at what he has been saying, speaking earlier after winning the leadership of his party.
We listen to the poorest communities, whether they're migrant communities, disabled communities, the trans community, working class communities. Whoever needs us to have their back, we will be there. We will be there to amplify their voices, to listen to the most marginalised and minority communities, to speak with them, not for them, and challenge truth to power, to take on power and wealth in this country. And we absolutely recognise that migrants are very much the backbone of this country. Our country has problematic history that we also need to come to terms with, but also we have a beautiful history, a beautiful present, and a beautiful future of what we are when communities come together.
Well, Natalie Bennett, the former leader of the Green Party, Baroness Bennett, is with me now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, lovely to be with you.
Natalie, previously Zach Polanski said that he thought that women could increase the size of their breasts through the power of their mind and through hypnotherapy. Are you proud to be a member of a party who has that person as their leader?
Well, I think you're talking about something from a very distant past and a tabloid story. And, you know, I can say this as a former editor of a newspaper. I used to be editor of the Guardian Weekly. Don't read everything, believe everything you read in the papers.
He is quoted as saying this is an extremely new, he is quoted as saying in The Sun, this is an extremely new approach, but I can see it becoming popular very quickly because it's so safe and a lot cheaper than a boob job, says Zach. Are you implying that The Sun made that up?
No, what I'm saying is that we all know that stories appear in tabloid newspapers. What we know is people can hear for themselves. They've just been listening to what Zach's been saying, as indeed Green Party members have up and down the country. And there's a great deal, you could feel the enthusiasm, the energy in the room this morning.
It didn't make you feel very sleepy?
Zach, of course, is being, coming in as the leader after a great deal of success. We had nearly 2 million votes in the last general election, quadrupled our number of MPs, well over 800 councillors.
You quadrupled them by going from 1 to 4. I just wonder within this whether actually the best thing for you to do would be to have some sort of coalition or electoral pact with Jeremy Corbyn's party, because polls would suggest that his new party, as yet unnamed, could get 10% of the vote in this country. Surely that might be a good idea.
Well, I think what we're seeing is a huge desire for change, a huge dissatisfaction after 1 year of the Labor government. What all of those surveys, what the reaction, what people are doing is showing is people are really looking for something different, and that's exactly what the Green Party offers. You know, Zach this morning was talking about caring, and I've been spending this afternoon with a brilliant organisation called the Citizens Network, listening to lots of activists, people with learning disabilities who are acting, calling for, campaigning, working in their communities for better treatment. And that kind of caring community, that was one of the things that Zach was very much in the clip you just played talking about. We need communities that really are able to support people, and we need a situation where we don't have so many people struggling to put food on the table, keep a roof over their head, while we have fat cats, bosses of water companies, while we have a situation where a few people, we get the democracy that a few people pay for, and those people take massive amounts of resources out of our
society. What's more important to you in the Green Party at the moment, Natalie Bennett? Is it the green issues, the environment, or is it Gaza? Because we hear an awful lot about that as well.
Well, the fact is, all of these issues, whether it's social, environmental, racial justice, all of these issues, we have a society, a world, which really is not delivering for people or planet. It's not a case that it's one or the other issue. These issues are intimately interlinked. And what the Green Party is offering, what Zach and his new leadership team, the whole of the Green Party is offering, is a different way forward. And that's what people are absolutely desperate for.
You say that, and he said in his speech, we heard a clip of it there a minute ago, that the Green Party will always stand up for trans people. I wonder what you think of Graeme Linehan being arrested for tweeting, if a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. Should we be arresting people for tweeting that?
Well, I'm afraid, as I said, I've spent the whole afternoon meeting with and talking from and hearing from people with learning disabilities, campaign network.
Well, let me just update you on what's happened. Graeme Linehan is the creator of Father Ted. He's been arrested at Heathrow Airport 4.5 hours ago. He has been told that because of 3 tweets that he has been arrested, and one of them says what I just said to you there. The other one is that there was a large group of people, a photograph of trans activists, and he says a photo you can smell. He's also said in the 3rd tweet, I hate them, misogynists and homophobes, F them. Do you believe someone should be arrested for that?
Well, I've mentioned before that I'm an old newspaper editor, and one of the rules of newspapers, and I thought most media coverage, is that when a matter is a potential court case, I'm not going to comment on something.
That's absolute nonsense. That is absolute nonsense. No, when proceedings are active, when someone has been charged with a case, then it is on. Then you shouldn't comment on it. What you know as a former journalist, well, Natalie, is that you can comment on whatever you want before charges are brought. It does not prejudice a judicial system, and you know that.
Well, what I would say is that I know that I'm not going to comment on what you've just told me, which is the only
information. You've just been completely disingenuous. You've just been completely disingenuous.
Well, but what I will say is that, as Zach said this morning, trans rights are human rights. We need a society that respects people's rights, that people are not subject to.
What about the right to free speech, Natalie Bennett? Do you respect that right?
I respect the right to free speech, but that obviously has always had limits. The obvious, don't yell fire in a crowded theatre.
What about saying if someone should be punched in the balls? Is that something we should arrest people for?
I think that's inducement to assault. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't sound like an appropriate...
So if it's inducement to assault, would you then arrest Queen Camilla, who has said that a few years ago when she was sexually assaulted that she hit someone in that area with her shoe? Would you call for the arrest of the Queen of the United Kingdom on that basis?
Self-defense is a perfectly reasonable situation.
So it's fine to. So let me just get this clear, Natalie. You're saying it's fine to do it, but you should be arrested for calling for people to do it. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that everyone, and particularly young women in circumstances where they may be feeling vulnerable, are entitled to self-defense.
Okay, so would people not feel vulnerable if they're in a trans-identified male is in a female-only space? They wouldn't feel vulnerable there.
Well, I think there is no reason for us to think that trans women are any threat to other women. There is absolutely no reason for that to be the case.
There's no reason that they're a threat, despite the fact we've had numerous cases. For example, Isla Bryson, who was a rapist, who then identified as a woman. There's no reason to feel in any way worried by any man who says that they're a woman.
I know that there are people in our society who are predators, who are criminals. They come in all kinds of different identities and all kinds of circumstances. We have to make sure that any person who is a threat, the police or other authorities act appropriately.
Do you accept that trans people can be predators?
That you can identify a group of people. Assume that a group of people are a particular threat. That is an expression of prejudice.
Okay. Do you accept that it is possible for a trans person to be a predator?
Yes, it's possible for anybody to be a predator.
Okay. Natalie Bennett, thank you for your time this afternoon. That's Baroness Bennett there, former leader of the Green Party. Baroness Bennett there, what is your reaction to what she said? 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let me just be absolutely clear about something. I'm a journalist. I'm a trained journalist. I trained about 15 years ago to be a journalist. I know the law, and any journalist will know that when someone's arrested, you can say what you like. You can broadcast what you like within the law about that. If they are charged and if they're active proceedings and they're facing a court date, then you can prejudice a trial. If there isn't a trial to prejudice, you can't prejudice it. You can say basically what you want when court proceedings aren't active. Until the point that someone is charged, you can say what you want. You can say someone's been arrested, you can say who they are, you can say their background. Obviously, there are certain things you don't want to prejudice, but nonetheless, you can say basically what you want. Natalie Bennett was being totally disingenuous there. She kept saying, as a former journalist, she said that as a couple of times, she'd been a former very senior journalist at The Guardian, where else? And she'd just been completely disingenuous there, so I called her out on it, and I'd do it again. Honestly, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Let's go to Helen in Manchester, who has given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Helen, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, it's lovely talking to you. I've never spoken to you before. I'm in Knutsford, actually, not Manchester.
Oh, right, okay, in Knutsford.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, Helen, it's great to talk to you. It's always good to talk to new people and old friends as well. What would you like to say?
Okay, talking of nuts. Yeah, so because of the police arresting Graeme, we've all heard the expression kicked or punched in the balls.
Yeah.
Can I say that on the radio?
You just
At least
have.
27 times already. You know, and I'm not on Twitter, so I wouldn't even know about it. I have been listening to the radio most of the day, and it's like, you know, so what they've done is they've
amplified it. They've amplified it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pardon?
They've amplified it, and they've said they've let you didn't know about it before, and now you know about it.
Exactly, and I've heard, like I say, I've heard nothing but, you know, that expression like all day long. So, yeah, it's mad. It is mad. Do you know what? My mum died 5 years ago. It would have been her birthday yesterday, actually. So I'm kind of thinking about her a lot.
I'm sure you were.
Pardon?
I'm sure you were. That's a poignant day.
Yeah, it is. But she always used to shout at the radio and the TV, and I'm doing the same myself now.
I do it too.
I get it.
I do it too.
Yeah,
I was watching the BBC 1 o'clock news earlier today, and I was texting a friend of mine, just so many things that they said and did that I just thought, what is this country coming to? What is news in this country coming to? What is the BBC coming to? It's just there's so much that is really worrying at the moment, Helen.
There is, and things were kind of all going a bit bizarre pre-COVID. I always. So many things happened in my life because of COVID, and now the past 5 years, everything's just getting more and more mental. And I think everybody's agreeing. I mean, it was bizarre before then, but everything just seems to be going from bad to worse.
Helen, I think
nobody's doing anything about anything that needs to be done. It's like all that ever seems to happen is it just makes the situation even worse than it was before.
Very good points, Helen. Listen, the first time we chatted, don't make it the last. Give me another ring anytime, Helen. You make very, very good points. And just thinking about you as well when you're thinking about your mum, and those anniversaries are always very poignant. I have a few of them myself in my life, as we all do. Tom in Gloucester has also given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Tom, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Peter, that mardy-lardy wet white Natalie Bennett is an utter and thorough embarrassment, disgrace to the profession of journalism.
Tell us what you really think, Tom.
Oh my dear lordy, stop the world, I want to get off.
Yeah, I mean...
How can someone be so deluded that she can sit there and say, as a former professional journalist, I know I can't commentate. She dropped herself in it right there and then, and so right that you pulled her up roughly by the reins. Well done, young man.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. The thing I appreciate most is the fact you called me a young man at 41. But
compared to me, you're a mere whippersnapper.
Whippersnapper. Tom, thank you so much. Thanks for your comments there, and quite a few people getting in touch. Jim in Cambridge as well says Baroness Bennett talks rubbish. Well done for ripping her apart, Peter. Stuart from Ramsden Bellhouse says superb, Peter, taking that green loony to task. The sort of comment most media would let them get away with. Keep up the work. Great show. Thank you. Rob says Baroness Bennett is the plank of the day. What a waste of taxpayers' money. Well done, Peter, for showing what sort of person she is. Steph says, I absolutely detest that Bennett woman. She cannot answer a simple question, and she has contributed to the downfall of the West. She is on the wrong side of history, and her ilk are done. Frank says the Baroness was dancing on the head of a pin, trying to avoid answering your question. Keep it up, Cardi P. Gary says, dearie me, Peter, there's little wonder this country is in the state it is if that is the quality of the politicians. And Jane says, free speech when it suits. Andy says, oh no, Natalie Bennett, here we go, this should be fun. That was before the interview. Brian's in Glasgow and has some thoughts on Graeme Linehan. Plenty of thoughts coming in on him, Brian. I'll come to you in a second. Let me just read two more, actually. Linehan, I would like to know what officer authorised this and how high up this went, because he needs to be pulled up. That is Derek who says that. And Fiona says, when did the law react to what one person says? Time the government is seen to act on this. We are all watching. Brian, let's bring you in now. What would you like to say about this?
Peter, I want to say that it is absolutely fantastic that 5 armed police officers have shot themselves in the foot, because he is going to have a fantastic time writing a new comedy show.
Yeah.
That's it. I look forward to the new Father Ted.
style thing. Yeah, absolutely, Brian. Well, they're just. I mean, it's sad as well. I mean, it's farcical, but it's happening. And, you know, Barry in Norwich has been in touch and says, you know, it's total overreach. Rowan Atkinson said a couple of months ago, people in his position are probably safe, but the public are not. The public are now so full of themselves that they're pushing the boundaries at the moment. Nobody is safe. What do you make of that, Brian?
I wouldn't like to make any comments.
Okay, fair enough. Brian, thank you so much for your call. Leslie says, be careful, it won't be long before talk is under surveillance. We're under surveillance already. Julia Hartley-Brewer was, her comments were noted and pored over by a secretive unit within the government. That's now totally public that happened, her comments over lockdown. I'm sure they're monitoring what we say as well. What did Ricky Jones say? Hypocrisy. Cheers, says Jason in Worthing. Well, a jury found him not guilty, but that did go to the courts in fairness, but nonetheless I think they made the wrong decision. Molly says, if it's not illegal for a Labour councillor, Ricky Jones, to ask out people to cut the throats of the far right, how can armed police arrest a comedian for saying punch a man on the balls? Lewis says this freedom of speech issue started at COVID, it's continued since, and Tony says the police are out of control. And Rich says it was 2 cops to arrest, as the armed ones always go in twos and then the other 3 to control the crowd. Those videoing are just to gawk. And the comments John says regarding Joe Brand towards Nigel Farage sits with me. If she ever appears on media, I blank her. That was Joe Brand, who I think I'm right in saying said that they should throw battery acid in Nigel Farage's face. She's still at large. Matt in Sandown in the Isle of Wight said, just heard Jess Phillips' latest address to Parliament. She sounded bored, stiff and unenthusiastic, like she couldn't be bothered and just going through the motions, says Mark. Leslie says, I feel like Brenda with Jess Phillips creating another Quango. Another one? You got to say it in that voice. It's mandatory. It's the law. And as we know, we always obey the law. Lots to discuss, including in the sport. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk. We'll get more of your views on the air too. 0344 499 1000.
Some very litigious trans activists who will go after Graeme for the rest of his life, it seems. They won't leave him alone, like he hasn't suffered enough for speaking his mind. Yeah. And they are just people who want to ruin his life, simply because he thinks that women should be able to have single-sex spaces and children shouldn't be told that they're born in the wrong body. And it's just devastating to see the fact that he was already on his way, that he was coming back to the UK because he has a trial at the end of this week for other charges, for something else to do with trans activists.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Paul in Milton Keynes, who says, I don't think you'll read this out, but here goes. Kemi Badenoch served in both Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak's cabinets, but never spoke up about the curtailing of oil and gas exploration in the North Sea by the Conservatives when they were in power. I think Badenoch is just jumping on the reform bandwagon of rhetoric, says Paul Milton Keynes. Well, I did read it out, Paul. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Jane says, unfortunately for the Tories, no one is listening to Kemi. The voters will not forget or forgive them. Perhaps the election after next. People may be ready. And Sean in Bridlington says, how can it possibly be more secure to import energy than to drill it for ourselves? More Labour lies. Well, we'll talk more about all of that before 6, but in the meantime, let's have a look at the sport.
Sports news from The Sun.
Well, I'm delighted Sean Custis is with us, Head of Sport for The Sun. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Last week, League 2 Grimsby Town shocked the world, knocking Manchester United out of the League Cup, but it turns out Grimsby are in a bit of trouble. What's happened?
Well, this is the story of the day, this is, because it potentially opens a big can of worms. But actually, Grimsby were fined £20,000 for fielding an ineligible player. That player turned out to be Clark O'Doyle, who'd signed the day before on loan from Bradford.
Oh, dear.
But he signed 1 and a bit minutes after what was the deadline. Now, Grimsby confessed this themselves. It wasn't like somebody found it out, but he shouldn't have played. And it's sort of irrelevant that he missed a penalty. He actually wasn't any use to Grimsby. Right. He missed a penalty in the shootout. But potentially, Manchester United could have appealed, and they have 5 days to do this and say, this is unfair. They feel an ineligible player. We want a replay, or we want Grimsby thrown out the cup. There's sort of precedent for teams being thrown out before, but you've got to go a long way back for... older listeners will remember when West Ham had to have a replay because a player called Manny Onweyemne played for West Ham very late on in a game, but he'd already played for Gillingham earlier on in the competition, so he was ineligible and they had to replay the game, and West Ham, having won the first game, actually lost the replay. But most recently it's mainly been fines for players, for ineligible players. But in theory, Man United could have taken this on and said, as I say, we want a replay, or we want Grimsby shut down. But think of the optics of that one. If Manchester United had taken on little Grimsby,
well, indeed,
and gone, this is unfair. You played a player on loan for Bradford, you shouldn't have played. So I think they've taken the sensible option and deciding not to pursue that. But it's an amusing little story. I can imagine somebody at Grimsby, the secretary or something, oh no,
the timing wasn't quite right.
This is no good. We played an ineligible player. What could happen here? But I think they're going to be all right, and they play Sheffield Wednesday in the next round. And I think Man United are just going to have grim and bear it, as we've said.
Very good, like it. It's the day after transfer deadline today, of course. Liverpool's new star striker Alexander Isak has spoken for the first time since his transfer from Newcastle. What's he been saying?
Well, it's not so much speaking for the first time. He spoke about joining Liverpool last night, but today he's actually finally got round to talking to the Newcastle United fans, of which I'm one, in which he says it's been an honour to play for the club, we've had a great time, etc., etc. Honestly, this is not going down particularly well with Newcastle fans. We've washed our hands of him. He wanted to go to Liverpool, didn't want to be with us anymore, and we're a bit fed up with him, frankly. And he's
sick as a parrot, one might say.
He's sick as a parrot. Very good. That's good. You should work on sport.
Well, I think that's maybe not the best idea, but
possibly
anyway.
not. He's training with Sweden today, and there's a great picture that we've got on the back of the Sun tomorrow, which is a player called Emil Kraft, who also plays for Newcastle, who's a Swedish fullback, walking ahead of him, and there's no conversation between them. It may be just to capture a picture of a moment in time, but it looks like Kraft's just
says it all, really.
I'm not talking to you. Look, I suppose it's time to move on, but given the way Newcastle put out a statement last night about Isak, which was 37 words and didn't thank him for anything, really, I think we know where we all stand, on each side of the fence there.
Perhaps they don't wish him well. And Manchester City have a new goalkeeper who signed from PSG.
Indeed, Gianluigi Donnarumma, who's a very well-known goalkeeper. He's won the Euros, he won the Champions League with PSG, he's got lots of caps, 70-odd caps. But his signing by Manchester City is seen as a bit of an odd one because he doesn't really have the footwork which Pep likes from a goalkeeper. I know that sounds like a contradiction in terms of goalkeeper needing good footwork, but that's the way Pep Guardiola has played. Edison, who's leaving, he's going off to Turkey, was definitely a good player with his feet, specialised in hitting very long passes to the wingers. Not really Donnarumma has seen that, and although he is a very experienced international keeper, he seems a strange fit for a Pep Guardiola team. But he's been talking today, saying how fantastic it is to join, and he actually says that City is a club every player in the world would love to join. I'm not sure City quite has the lustre of a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or something like that. Yes, they've been very successful, but I think most of the top players would aspire to maybe the Spanish clubs rather than, say, a Manchester City, even though they've been very, very successful. So it remains to be seen how well he does. I think the jury could be out on that one. As I said yesterday, for James Trafford, who signed from Burnley for 27 million, thinking he was going to get his chance and has really not performed great in the first 2 games. Guardiola seems to have made his mind up that it's going to take another couple of seasons before Trafford can be his main goalkeeper, if at all.
Tell us about the international matches. Of course, they take priority this weekend. The England squad having a few changes, bit of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, he's called up Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's a player who used to play for Chelsea, now plays for AC Milan. He's a midfield player who's been dogged by injury, really. He was seen as a good young player when he was at Chelsea, but he hasn't actually played in the England team since 2018. You've got to go back to the World Cup in Russia for his last appearance, 7 years. And also Gerald Konsa, who's a defender, was at Liverpool, signed for Bayer Leverkusen. He's been called up too. Reinforcements that were needed by Thomas Tuchel, but you might say, what sort of reinforcements do you really need to play against Andorra on Saturday, which is not the stiffest test, but the hard game is Serbia away next Tuesday, which will be a stiff test. So he's just bolstering forces there, but England be looking to get 6 points in that, because they haven't really impressed so far, despite winning their games. They haven't. We haven't been very excited by them so far. And he's on a 9-0 when they play Andorra on Saturday at Villa Park, because he's expected to thump them. And anything less than 6 or 7 will be a disappointment.
An embarrassment. We'll see what happens on Saturday, of course. Full coverage in The Sun and indeed online at thesun.co.uk and indeed on talkSPORT. Sean, thank you very much for coming in. Sean Cuss is there, head of sport at The Sun. Lots to discuss on Graeme Linehan as well. Graeme in Bushy, another Graeme, says Graeme Linehan should have told the police he identified as a trans woman, see how they reacted. Andrew Bowie has been reacting, the Shadow Scotland secretary. He's been talking about the arrest. Let's see what he has had to say.
It sounds like it's complete overreach by the Metropolitan Police and a complete overreaction. It's quite worrying, actually. Disregarding, whether or not I would have been comfortable tweeting what Graeme Linehan tweeted or indeed said, put that to one side. We live in a democracy where we value free speech above all else, and he wasn't saying anything illegal. Controversial, yes, but illegal, no. And I think it's incredible that he has been treated in this way. He has been met with such overwhelming force, frankly, from the Metropolitan Police, given what we do allow to be said online, far worse by people in this country, and what is allowed to be said on the streets of this country. So I'm very worried about this situation. When you see some comments from extremist groups or individuals, be that supporting another side in the situation in Gaza or whatever it might be, whatever issue, you read far worse on social media than what Graeme Linehan tweeted. And I think that the fact that he's been treated in such a way, whatever your view, and I stress whatever your view, on the situation is deeply troubling for the United Kingdom and our ability to call this place a society where we can exercise free speech.
Thank you for Andrew for all your messages about what Andrew Bowie has been saying, and about Graeme Linehan. Of course, he was arrested in Heathrow. We'll be talking about that in just a second. Matthew Hulbert will be joining us, the Liberal Democrat activist, will be talking to us, as will James Esses, who is a psychotherapist and campaigner and founder of Just Therapy as well. Simon says, why did 5 armed officers not go to Gary Lineker's house after his tweet depicting the rat? Of course, he retweeted something which depicted Jewish people as rats. Matthew says, thank you for absolutely skewering the ridiculous Natalie Bennett. I hope that clip makes it to the YouTube channel. Well, Matthew, the good news is it's out on social media. I am just at this exact moment actually going to retweet it so you can see it. Yeah, if you missed that, you can have a look. We're going to discuss this more in the next hour. We'll also be taking a peek inside the Sun to see what is there, and talking to Maggie Oliver as well about what Jess Phillips has been saying about grooming gangs and the failure of officials and whether they deserve to go to jail. She says they do. Maggie Oliver will be with us. She's, of course, the whistleblower in the Rochdale rape gang case and the founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation. Let us know what you think too of that issue, as well as Graeme Linehan. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Plenty more to come in the next hour here on Talk, so do stay with us.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People schmiggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... the smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, when more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels, and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world as told by...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, this is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. Lots to talk about, including Graeme Linehan's arrest. The Father Ted creator has been arrested at Heathrow, he says, for 3 tweets where he criticised trans rights activists. We'll talk about that in just a second and get all your views on it as well. Matthew Hulbert and James Estes are standing by to debate the issue. Maggie Oliver will join us as well. She was, of course, the whistleblower on the Rochdale rape gang case. This is Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister, saying grooming gang failure officials deserve to go to jail. We'll talk about what's in the Sun as well tomorrow and take all your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes. You can send in your calls, you can make a call and send us a voice note on 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV or follow me at Peter Cardwell. As I say, send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Plenty to talk about between now and 7 o'clock. It's Mark Dolan who's here between 7 and 10. We'll have a chat with him as well before his show, but let's talk to you before then. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, Graeme Linehan has been arrested. The Metropolitan Police said that today at 1 o'clock officers arrested a man at Heathrow Airport. Sorry, yesterday I should say. At 1 o'clock officers arrested a man at Heathrow after he arrived on an inbound American Airlines flight. The man is in his 50s and was arrested on suspicion of inciting violence. This is in relation to posts on X, the Metropolitan Police says. That's the other word for Twitter, of course. After being taken to police custody, officers became concerned for his health. He was taken to hospital. His condition is neither life-threatening nor life-changing. He has now been bailed pending further investigation. The arrest was made by officers from the Metropolitan Police's aviation unit. It is routine for officers policing airports to carry firearms. These were not drawn or used during any point in the arrest. That is what the Metropolitan Police are saying. Graeme Linehan himself, is now banned from Twitter. He can't put tweets out, but what he can do is write on Substack, which is a blogging site. He says, the moment I stepped off the plane at Heathrow, 5 armed police officers were waiting. Not 1, not 2, 5. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. In a country where paedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control, where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state had mobilised 5 armed officers to arrest a comedy writer for this tweet. And no, I promise you I'm not making this up. He says it's a tweet he sent on the 20th of April at 8:02 in the morning. If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. Another one was on the 19th of April, the day before. This was a photo of lots of trans activists on a protest, I think in London, and he has written a photo you can smell, and then a follow-up to that, I hate them, misogynists and homophobes, F them. That is what Linehan had put on Twitter. He's been arrested for that. He's been bailed, and we know that the only condition is that he can't go on Twitter. Well, Matthew Hulbert's a political commentator, and James Esses is a psychotherapist, campaigner and founder of Just Therapy. Perhaps I'll start with James. What do you make of this?
Evening, Peter. I think it's a dark day for free speech in this nation. You know, before I came on tonight, my wife said to me, be careful what you say tonight because the police will be at our door next. And the sad fact is that she's not joking and she's not wrong, because time and time again we see police arresting people, showing up to people's homes because of something they've posted online that they have taken a disliking to. You know, Keir Starmer says we have a nation of free speech. Well, when 5 armed police officers arrest you when you land in London Heathrow for something you posted on X, that suggests otherwise.
James, thank you. Matthew Hulbert is with us as well. Matthew, what do you make of this?
Well, good evening, Peter, and to James, and of course to your wonderful viewers and listeners. Well, what I say is that Graeme Linehan, rather like J.K. Rowling, and I have to say after a quick flick through his Twitter, like James, seems utterly obsessed with this issue. I mean, Graeme Linehan has said himself previously, apparently to the Daily Mail, that he's lost his career, his wife and his friends over his views on this issue. Well, all I can say is that I hope he thinks it was worth it. I cannot for the life of me understand why people are so obsessed with people who just want to get on with their lives without harassment and persecution as their true selves.
Okay, I mean, we can debate that issue if you want, Matthew, but what I'd like to ask you is, should he have been arrested?
Well, his views were pretty repellent. And I mean, what I'd like to ask James, if I can.
No, you can't. We'll do that in a second. We'll do that in a second. Why should he have been arrested? Why was he inciting violence in your mind?
Well, I'm not a legal expert, but clearly the police felt.
But you're fine for him to be arrested. You're not a legal expert, but you're fine for him to be arrested because he disagrees with you.
Peter, mate, can I get a couple of words out? Is that okay?
Not stopping you.
Thank you. I'm not a legal expert, but the police clearly felt there was a reason to arrest Graeme Linehan, and then I'm assuming that there will be some kind of legal process, or the whole thing will be dropped, or there'll be some kind of legal process, and it'll be then for others to decide whether there's reason to convict over hate speech or whatever it is. That's
they've arrested him on suspicion of inciting violence. How do you think he incited violence through those tweets?
Well, I guess it depends how you look at those tweets, but he certainly did mention you've just decided to read them out on air to give them another airing, and he said in one of those tweets he made reference to kick a person in the privates. Did he not? You've just read it out. Did he not say that?
Okay, so Queen Camilla did do that actually with her shoe. We know that that happened a few years ago when she was sexually assaulted. Should she be arrested for actually doing the thing that Graeme Linehan said that people should do?
So now we're doing whataboutery. Okay,
No, it's not whataboutery. No, it's absolutely, absolutely clearly linked. Graeme Linehan is saying do it. Queen Camilla did it. You're saying he should be arrested. Should she be arrested?
Well, I gather that it was many, many, many years ago when she was a young girl, and I assume you don't believe in retrospective legal action, or maybe you do, Peter.
Retrospective legal action? Well, if someone murdered someone when I was, say, 30, hold on, let me get a word in edgeways. If someone murdered someone when I was 30, I'm now 41, yes, I would want them arrested. James Esses?
Well, of course.
Just a couple of points on that. I mean, you asked a fair question to Matthew, why should he be arrested? And Matthew's essentially said, well, because what Graeme posted is, is unsavoury or despicable or whatever. I mean, are those the grounds for imprisoning people and arresting people in this country? Just on the gender stuff and the trans stuff, I am utterly obsessed with this issue. Indeed, Matthew, you're right. And why that is because I care about children not being mutilated and told that they've been born in the wrong body, women's rights being infringed and free speech being undermined. So I'm gladly and proudly obsessed with this issue. But going back to the topic at hand, here was a comedian making a serious point with a joke, as comedians are prone to do. Men are infiltrating women's spaces. That's why we required a Supreme Court judgment on the issue. Most of the men in women's spaces do have testicles. And that's just the fact of it. There was no incitement. And, words are not actions. Talking about punching someone has absolutely nothing in common with actually punching someone. We all say things we don't mean literally. It isn't a spectrum. It isn't a slippery slope. And when you criminalise incitement, what you do is you remove agency from individuals. You suggest that people are so impressionable that someone can make them do something over a post on X.
James, do you not believe anybody should be arrested for incitement? If I were to put on Twitter right now that I thought, for example, that people should go out and I don't know, firebomb paedophiles, that if I put that on Twitter that I shouldn't be arrested. I mean, that's clear incitement, is it not?
Well, for me, I practice a position of agency. If somebody reads Linehan's post and then goes and punches a man who identifies as a woman in female toilets, the responsibility lies 100% with the person who's done the punching and not with Linehan.
So if someone riles people up, James, I'm interested in this. If someone riles people up and says you should go out and sort out that situation, you should deal with those people, you should go and teach that person a lesson, and then that person goes and does that. I mean, you don't seem to accept the principle of incitement, which is against the law.
I know it's against the law at present, but I, as I said, believe that words are not actions.
So are you a free speech absolutist, would you say, James?
I wasn't originally, but I am now, because I've seen the way in which curtailment of free speech can be used by those in power to essentially shut down people, shut down views that they disagree with. I mean, that's part of the issue here, because it's also subjective. I mean, let's think about what we've seen recently. You consider Pride festivals recently. Well, I've seen a number of signs at recent Pride festivals saying punch a turf. No one's been arrested for that. A few years ago, Joe Brand made a joke about throwing acid at Nigel Farage. No arrest for that. And even our health secretary, Wes Streeting, a number of years back, posted online about pushing a Daily Mail columnist in front of a train.
Well, on that note, James, I wonder if I could ask Matthew to respond, and maybe I could also ask you, Matthew, whether Pascal Robinson-Foster from Bob Villain should be arrested for shouting "death, death" to the IDF at Glastonbury. Clearly that's incitement.
Well, I think that clearly shouldn't have been said, should it?
Should he be arrested?
Well, I think it was a very unwise thing to say. And
should he be arrested?
I think if the law, Peter, felt that that was actionable, then yes, I would have no problem with that. I wish people wouldn't say anything like that. And what I'd say to James is that there's no free speech without potential consequence. You can't just say what you want. And I think, Peter, you actually agree with me on that, because you've said previously to me when
I'm not a free speech I'm not a free speech
not a free speech absolutist.
I'm not a free speech absolutist because I know the law exists. I disagree with James on incitement simply because incitement does does exist. What I disagree with you on, Matthew, is that Graeme Linehan should have been arrested, because I don't see any reason at all why he should have been arrested. For yes, he has opinions you don't like, and that's fine. You know, lots of people have opinions I don't like. You have opinions I don't like, Matthew. I'm not saying you should be arrested for them. You're a member of the Liberal Democrats. This isn't very liberal, is it?
Well, I don't think his tweets were very liberal. I mean, I thought his tweets were pretty disgusting and disgraceful. And as I've said...
But does that mean he should be arrested, Matthew?
Peter,
does that mean he should be arrested because you don't like what he's saying?
Peter, mate, you've slightly misrepresented what I've said. I don't think at any point in this interview I've said he should be arrested. What I've said is that the police clearly felt that there was cause enough to arrest him. That's quite different, isn't it?
Say that again, Matthew, sorry.
What I've said is that the police feel there was cause to arrest him. I've not said whether he should be arrested or not.
Well, maybe you let me know now. Do you think he should have been arrested?
I mean, in a sense, it's an impossible question to answer, isn't it?
Why?
I mean, you know, either this matter will be dropped or it'll go before legal proceedings and before courts, and the decision will be taken over whether what he said was right or not.
So is it then fine? Is it then fine just to arrest people willy-nilly and say, well, it's only an arrest, it doesn't really matter? I mean, this is something that had severe effects on his health. His heartbeat went up to over 200 beats a minute, and actually the police were so concerned about his health that he went to hospital as a result. So James, what do you make of the fact that he was arrested? I mean, Matthew's saying that it's an impossible question. I don't see it as an impossible question. I see it as a really straightforward issue. He was arrested on suspicion of inciting violence. I don't see any violence that was incited, apart from perhaps kicking people in the balls, which people say all the time.
Correct. There was no incitement. It was a joke, but on a serious topic. We're living in a nation of two-tier justice. If your house gets burgled, your phone gets stolen, you're a victim of fraud, good luck getting the police to investigate. But if you post something on X, they are all over us. And we see this as cases progress through the justice system. I mean, Lucy Connolly in prison for a very long period of time. And yet in the last year, we had a Labour MP who punched a constituent, a parent who killed their child, and multiple sexual abusers all avoid jail. What does that tell us about our justice system at present, in which you can abuse a child and not go to prison, but post something unsavoury on X and go to jail?
Lucy Connolly pleaded guilty to a crime. She pleaded guilty to a crime.
I'm talking about the sentence, Matthew.
But you accept that Lucy Connolly pleaded guilty to a crime?
What I'm saying, Matthew, is that if an MP can punch a constituent and someone can abuse a child and avoid prison, but somebody posts something on X and goes to prison, that demonstrates a clear two-tier justice system in this country, and that is a disgrace.
Matthew?
Well, I mean, again, what I'm hearing is, what about it? What I'm hearing is this shouldn't happen because these things have also haven't happened. I mean, I just don't think that is a reasonable argument. I think if Graeme Linehan...
Why is it not a reasonable argument? Why is it not a reasonable argument?
Peter, I think if Graeme Linehan wants to help himself, help his blood pressure, help his life, etc., he should stop being so obsessed with this issue and let people get on with their lives. So
what you're saying, Matthew, is that he should stop tweeting and being obsessed with this issue, as you put it, obsessed. Okay. So essentially, what you're saying is he should sit down and shut up and not have free speech.
I think it'd help him and his health.
I don't think he's going to take too many lessons from any of us. I think Graeme Linehan does what he wants to do, and my point is...
And then he faces the consequence. Well,
the consequence has been that he's been arrested on suspicion of inciting violence, and I don't know why. I don't know why he's been arrested, apart from this massive overreach and overkill in regard to what the Metropolitan Police has done. I don't see any reason for that, apart from the fact that he said things that you don't like, Matthew.
I think he said things that are pretty darn disgraceful. And the police have decided to take the action that they have, and they need to defend that as well. If people think what the police have done is wrong, then, the police are not above the law themselves and not above being questioned. We're questioning them on this show right now. So, that's fair enough.
Matthew, it's so patronising. Essentially, sit down and shut up. And what I say to you and others who are offended by what Graeme posted is that you don't have a right to not be offended. We've engaged in far too much mollycoddling and infantilisation in society. We need a bit of resilience. I've seen recently safe spaces being set up in UK companies because people are being triggered by seeing Union Jack flags or reading the Supreme Court judgment on biological sex. I'm a therapist. And if you or anyone else listening to the show is offended or triggered by jokes like the one that Graeme Linehan made, you need therapy, and I will offer that to you to help you develop some resilience. And you know what?
I can do without your therapy, thanks, mate. I'll pass on your therapy, thanks. You keep your therapy to yourself, okay? Thanks.
Matthew, just on a final point in regard to this, what will happen as a result of this? The thought that what will happen, as I know, not really, I would imagine not viewers and listeners to this programme, because they are people who usually have quite strong opinions, and that's great, and we love hearing them. But there will be a load of people who will read about this in The Sun tomorrow, other papers as well. They'll see this and they'll say, you can't say anything these days. They'll say that they've got to really monitor what they put online. And look, I'm sitting here, I've had death threats for stuff that I have said on air. I've been in a position where I get a load of abuse almost every day. That's something I deal with. I know you've had it as well, Matthew. I expect you've had it as well. James, all three of us in this conversation have had that. Do I want to limit people saying that? Well, I'd rather they didn't send me death threats, but do I want to limit people saying that? No, I mute them. You know, that's fine. I mute them, I unfollow them, I block them, whatever. That's okay, because there is free speech. If someone wants to call me, you know, a name, or point out something about my appearance, or say I'm a stupid person or whatever, they have the right to say that. It's horrible, it's nasty, it's not a nice thing, but it is nonetheless free speech, and we have that in our country. And what's going to happen right now, today, as people hear about this story, Matthew, is that they're going to moderate their views. They're going to moderate what they say, and they're going to say less and less and less, and we'll have less of an expression of a society. And what happens when you push it down? It comes out in other ways. And that's why I love this station, because we allow people to ventilate their views. We allow you and James and anybody who wants to ring me, they're very welcome to do so, to ventilate their views. But the problem is, when you press down on this, when you arrest people like Graeme Linehan, that's an attack on free speech. Final word, Matthew, and then James.
Yeah, so a couple of very quick things on that. So you're quite right. I'm sure all three of us have had that. I certainly have that. I'll be honest with you, Peter. Each time I come on your network, there are some folks online who are really quite vile about me and tend to play the man, not the ball. I don't blame your station for that. I don't blame most of your viewers and listeners for that, many of whom who I've met and who are very nice people. But some people can't help but be hateful. What I'd say, Peter, is in a world where you can be anything, be kind.
James?
I'll defend free speech to the hilt. You know, I'm Jewish. If somebody wants to come and tell me to my face how much they hate Jewish people, go for it. And, you know, it's my right to judge them and consider them an unsavoury character, but I don't want them arrested or imprisoned for it, because there's far less risk, and we've seen this in history, by allowing free speech than curtailing it. But the sad fact, Peter, is that most people only realise how valuable free speech is when the mob come for them.
Thank you both very much. Matthew Hulbert there, political commentator, Liberal Democrat activist, and James Estes, who's a psychotherapist, campaigner and founder of Just Therapy. Plenty to discuss in all of that. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. David says, any chance of Bob Villan being arrested? Great show. And another person says, regarding the arrest of the writer of Father Ted for incitement, an interesting precedent was set recently with Ricky Jones, accused of inciting hate, saying to slit throats. This chap had said to hit someone in the nuts if they're abusing children. The world will be watching. Two-tier justice in this country. Stay with us here on Talk.
90% of British people will never live in a brand new house with underfloor heating, and it just should not be the case that you can break the law and within days be housed in a place like, well, not days, they've obviously spent some time in a hotel and then they'd be moved to, but this also opens up the secondary question that Labour are banging on about closing these hotels. But then the number of people arriving are at record levels. So they might close the hotels, but these people will still be being housed on the taxpayers' expense. And where are they going to move? They're going to move to houses of multiple occupancy.
Some very litigious trans activists who will go after Graeme for the rest of his life, it seems. They won't leave him alone, like he hasn't suffered enough for speaking his mind. Yeah. And they are just people who want to ruin his life, simply because he thinks that women should be able to have single-sex spaces and children shouldn't be told that they're born in the wrong body. And it's just devastating to see the fact that he was already on his way, that he was coming back to the UK because he has a trial at the end of this week for other charges for something else to do with trans activists.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Elaine in West Lothian, who says, Peter, the trans activists who scream punch a turf for holding banners saying decapitate a turf or standing at a protest telling a crowd to punch a turf, nothing ever happens to them, says Elaine in West Lothian. Thank you for that, Elaine. Thanks to Ivor, who says, what's the difference between Graeme saying kick them in the balls, not Labour councillors saying cut their throats? Well, yeah, look, I think that's a very, very fair point. He was arrested for that. There was a trial. The jury found him not guilty. Maybe if Graeme Linehan goes to trial, they'll find him not guilty. We'll see what happens. Stephen Suffolk says, James Estes is correct, but we must remember the other bloke is a Liberal Democrat, and the whole lot of them are planks, says Stephen Suffolk. Not all of them. The mother of my godchild is a Liberal Democrat. She's not a plank. James Estes is 100% correct in all he says. Matthew Hulbert up to his usual Ludwig drivel, as is the norm, says Nick. Right, we're going to talk now about Jess Phillips. This is the government minister in the Home Office who says that the grooming gang failure officials deserve to go to jail. People who disgraced public office by failing to tackle rape gangs should be sent to prison, she said. She revealed nearly 1,300 cases which were dropped are currently being re-examined by police, 216 rape allegations being treated as the highest priority, and Jess Phillips vowing a public inquiry into the scandal will leave no stone unturned, vowing to put victims at the heart of the process. She says it will make for difficult conversations for some people, and if people are found by our court system to have undermined and committed disgrace in public office, then of course they should be sent to prison. Let's take a look at what she's been saying earlier on in the House of Commons.
Today I can announce that Operation Beaconport has been established. It will be overseen by the National Crime Agency and delivered in partnership with policing, including the National Police Chiefs Council and the CSE Task Force and the Tackling Organised Exploitation Programme. For the very first time, this new national policing operation is bringing together all of the relevant policing partners under one operation to ensure a swift and specialist law enforcement response to grooming gang offending. This collaborative approach is ensuring that long-term investigative capability built across police and best practice is standard, ending an unacceptable postcode lottery for victims and survivors. This new national operation will eliminate inconsistencies on how cases are handled across forces and ensure that there is no hiding place for perpetrators.
Let's talk to Maggie Oliver now. She's a former detective in Greater Manchester Police, a whistleblower on the Rochdale grooming gang case and founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation. Maggie, is this moving in the right direction, do you think, or are you given succour by what Jess Phillips has said today?
You know what, Peter? I would be shocked if any single person listening to that statement today takes one single word seriously. It is yet more rhetoric and empty promises that are not backed up by action, by resources, by effective policing, and a criminal justice system that is on its knees. Actually, listening to her saying that takes me right back to a meeting that I had at the House of Lords with her, and I took several victims and survivors to meet her about 2 months ago. I made exactly that comment because any of your listeners who follow my work will know that as well as the work I do with my charity, the Maggie Oliver Foundation, I'm involved in a separate campaign called #TheyKnew, where there are myself and several other directors who are promising to do our very best to take senior public officials to criminal or civil prosecutions for failure to carry out their duty, for gross misconduct in a public office. We have had to do that because repeatedly the authorities have failed to charge and hold to account those public officials who have deliberately, knowingly and intentionally failed in their duty to protect children. I can give you half a dozen examples of cases where the evidence is absolutely crystal clear, and yet I can tell you that the CPS will never charge a chief constable. It will be left to people like me and members of the public to hold them to account. I was involved, Peter, as you know, not only in Rochdale, but long before that in Operation Augusta, where Greater Manchester Police closed down a live investigation with 97 child rapists who we knew were abusing children. That went to an inquiry 15 years later, and in 2020 that report published and said that GMP, the Gold Command Group, including chief constables, the assistant chief constables, were guilty of closing that case down because they refused to put resources into it, so neglecting their duty. That case has now been forced to be reopened, but those 5 officers, 5 of whom were still alive, were made to go to the IOPC for investigation. No charges followed because those officers refused to be interviewed. Nothing has changed. So these words are empty promises. And, you know, I wish it was different. Sadly, Peter, it is not. And they are empty words. Jess Phillips smirked throughout that meeting in the House of Lords. She didn't have a single word to say to me. She ignored the survivors and victims there who were incandescent with rage at the treatment that they are still receiving at the hands of not only this government, successive governments. And
you must be very upset with Jess Phillips, who appeared to be on your side. This seemed to be her big thing when she was in opposition. Now she's a government minister, and yeah, government is a lot trickier than opposition. But at the same time, you must feel she personally has let you down, Maggie.
You know what? I've got to the point where I always say I hope for the best and expect the worst. And sadly, I have yet to see a single politician in my 13 years of fighting for this who has actually done anything. I've heard these empty promises time and time again. You go and speak to any police officers on the ground. Experienced police officers are leaving in their droves. She can say they've got 1,000 new cases. They've got 270 new prosecutions ongoing. We do not have police officers who can actually even investigate a burglary because they are leaving in their thousands, being replaced by young kids who sadly don't have the expertise to deal with these complex cases. So these words are pointless. 3 months after Baroness Casey's review, we are still waiting for terms of reference. I am leading with my charity to take the government to a judicial review. The response to our first letter for that from the government, and I read it, the government is not obliged to implement the recommendations of ICSA. They are recommendations and no more than that. That follows 7 years, £200 million, hundreds of victims, and even now they are wriggling on the fence. They will not act.
Which makes you wonder, actually, what will they do after this next inquiry? Maggie, thank you. That's Maggie Oliver there, former detective at Greater Manchester Police. Really appreciate you joining us. She's also founder of her own foundation there. She was the whistleblower in the original Rochdale rape gang case. If you want to react to that, give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. That's what Lisa in Cardiff has done in regard to what Matthew Hulbert has been saying about Graeme Linehan, the Father Ted creator, who has been arrested as free speech curtailed. He's alleged to have incited violence. I don't see how he has. We've got a member of the Shadow Cabinet, Andrew Bowie, who is convinced no crime has been committed. Lisa, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. It's lovely to speak to you as always. Thanks. And I want to thank Talk for airing the views of most of the public who are insane in this country.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Nobody else is talking about this Graeme Linehan thing. Nobody else is talking about it. They're ignoring it.
Right. We love Father Ted. That's irrelevant.
I do too.
This should not be. I mean, God, if the police heard what I said, I would have been locked up years ago. Because I'm of a certain age. I'm 56 this week, and I grew up thankfully in an age that we could say. We could, as you say, agree to disagree. Mm-hmm. You could get offended. You wouldn't kill people because you didn't like what they said, right? And this world has gone bonkers. Mm-hmm. And no wonder the children today are screwed up, quite frankly, because they're being taught by a leftist, But he should not, anyway, going back to the point, no way should he have been arrested. Mm-hmm. No way.
What did you make of what Matthew said? Because I think you gave us a ring originally about that.
Well, I don't agree with him. I think he's a lefty, dreadful. I mean, I was shouting at the telly listening to him.
But that is his free speech to make his points clear, and that's the beauty of the station. That you disagreed with him. It doesn't mean that you're going to arrest him.
No, I'm not at all. But I just think we've I've spoken to you before. What's happened to this country, Peter?
Yeah,
what has happened?
Yeah. I know.
We're in despair, and I pity, I fear for the young people, the future. I don't know what's happened, and I'm sure if our dear late Queen was here, she would have called Mr. Starmer in for a meeting on a Monday morning.
I think that's probably a good point, Lisa. And listen, a very happy birthday for this week. It must feel great to have a birthday in the same week as Keir Starmer.
No, let me just tell you on this. When I got up this morning, I found out to my horror, because we were on your show, it was Keir Starmer's 63rd birthday.
Yes.
My husband is a Virgo as well. I went, oh my God, he's a Virgo.
Well, is that because you're so similar to Keir Starmer because of your star sign?
No, we are decisive. We don't do U-turns. And I thought he's ruined my star sign because he's a Virgo.
He's ruined my star sign.
Right,
Brilliant.
He's decisive. Right, and I don't flip-flop, but he's just not a Virgo. I wish he wasn't, because it's ruined my, ruined my week.
Lisa, you give me a laugh. I hope you have a smile on your face. And when you have a lovely birthday this week, that's Lisa in Cardiff there. Thank you for that. Keith in Oastry says, not a few months ago, Jess Phillips was trying to do everything to avoid a national inquiry. What has changed? And Earl says on the Jess Phillips statement, how do you create a smoke screen to keep the public quiet by saying you're doing something while doing nothing? That is a very, very good point. We're going to take a peek inside the Sun tomorrow, see what they're up to and what they're covering. No doubt Graeme Linehan will be front and centre. We will talk to John Lucas, the night news editor, in just a second. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks so much for all your comments. We'll get to more of them in a second, and calls as well, many of them coming in. But let's talk to John Lucas now. He's night news editor at The Sun. Hi, John.
Hello.
Big day. What's likely to be one of your big stories tomorrow?
Yeah, well, it's the one you've been talking about all day, the issue of Graeme Linehan being arrested at Heathrow. I'd be very surprised if it's not on nearly everybody's front page tomorrow. We'll have to see who does and doesn't do it, but at the moment it's looking like our front page. And it's, yeah, no, just to recap, he's come back from Arizona. He's obviously had something flagged on the system as he's come in, and he's been arrested by five armed police officers at Heathrow Airport, detained over a handful of tweets, which are gender critical tweets. You know, we know that these things cause a lot of rows online. However, you don't expect it to sort of drift into your real life in the way this has done for him. I mean, he said it himself. Just to quote him, he said, "Well, in a country where paedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime's out of control, where women are assaulted and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state brought 5 armed police to arrest a comedy writer for a handful of tweets." And I mean, I'm sure you've had the tweets on, but yeah, I mean, it's just talking about, you know, they're a bit punchy, but he's a comedy writer. He's you know, and he's trying.
And
to
there's nothing I'm not a legal expert, but there's nothing in them I can see that is incitement. I mean, kick someone in the balls. I mean, your front page yesterday was about the Queen, who actually hit someone in the balls with her shoe. You know, should she be arrested? I don't think so.
Lovely tabloid word, which we managed to get on the front page. But yeah, I mean, and it's going to cause, you know, it speaks to a wider issue that we've got going on at the moment. You had the case of Lucy Connolly, the case of Ricky Jones, for things that they did and said, and how that, you know, whatever the rights and wrongs are, very different outcomes in those cases. And, you know, this has been happening for years now. Police forces getting involved in what people are posting on social media. Yeah. We get lots of calls from our readers who've suffered burglaries, suffered frauds, and you know, their cases are going unsolved.
We get it all the time as well. You can't get a police officer to come round, and yet here they are. Here's 5 of them who are dealing with 3 tweets by the look of things. Another story, which I think is just the woke madness going on in this country. Kenneth Williams has been slapped with a trigger warning. I mean, obviously he's very sadly no longer with us because he was hilarious. But if he's saying, you know, why do you need a trigger warning for someone saying "matron, take them away"? Yeah, I mean, Kenneth Williams. I mean, if you're tuning in to watch a Kenneth Williams programme, "Ooh, matron," and all the rest of it, you're not going to do the voice? No, I don't think I want to. Again, I won't force you. I always get tempted to do these voices, but I'm not going to do it. In the newsroom, maybe. Okay. But this is an ITV show, so it's from 1983, and it was an audience with Kenneth Williams, Carry On star. You know, I think I've seen that. I think I watched that on YouTube one time years ago. I have a friend from school who's a massive fan of Kenneth Williams, and not entirely unlike Charles Hawtrey himself. And I mean, this first aired in 1983, but I mean, who's that going to offend? Exactly, really? And it's just pandering to snowflakery and all the rest of it. It says the warning you'll get if you go onto it is contains outdated references and innuendo some viewers may find offensive. Now, when you watch it, I won't read that one. When you watch it, I mean, but they're just funny jokes. He's talking at one point. He's talking to a woman who had been arguing with a naked man, and he says, "Oh, did you have it out with him?" And she comes back and says, "No, he had it out himself." And there's a few bits like that, and you know, he says, "I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh no, I won't do that one either." But there's lots and lots of good ones. And, you're self-censoring. You can get away with it. But the great thing is, Williams himself, I decided to dig some of his quotes out, had actually addressed innuendo himself. Right, and he said, "I can't stand innuendo." He says, "If I see one in a script, I whip it out immediately." Reminds me of one of my favourite jokes, which is about the woman who asks a barman for a double entendre, so he gives her one. Let's talk about pubs now. Wetherspoons and barmen. Wetherspoons holidays on the horizon. Spoons. We love Spoons at the Sun. I'm a big fan. We're a big fan of Wetherspoons, and we're going to have one near the building soon. Oh, really? They're building a new one. And it's actually named after the sun. We're very, very excited about this. But anyway, really, don't tell me. Come on, tell me about this. I think it's called the Sun. It's going to be the Sun Quay or the Sun Wharf. Right. And it will be in the
near Sun HQ, just downstairs.
That's brilliant.
We're very excited about
I'm
it.
excited too. I can go there for lunch. I used to go every Sunday morning to my local, well, before I started presenting on Sunday mornings, I used to go every Sunday morning to my local Wetherspoons. I would get a number of papers, including the Sun on Sunday, and sit down with some eggs and a bit of breakfast and you know, have a good breakfast.
That's it, and you can't beat Spoons for price. And also, they actually do have, I mean, you know, I'm sure they're maligned by some people, but they purchase these lovely buildings
do them
in
up,
towns, and they do them up, otherwise they would go into disuse. So, you know, they are very
Do you know
valuable.
who J.D. Wetherspoon is? Do you know this story?
Which one?
So the guy who set it up, who's the guy who set up Wetherspoons? Tim Martin, that's right. Tim Martin set up Wetherspoons, but he had a teacher at school, Mr. J.D. Wetherspoon, who said, "You will amount to nothing." So he set up the pubs and called them J.D. Wetherspoons. That's the reason. Yeah,
I like that. Well, if you're a fan of Wetherspoons, you're going to be able to do these package tours. Believe it or not, it's been going for about 6 months. Or this thing that it was a trial in the north, and over 5 or 6 days it would take you. You'd stay 5 nights in a hotel in Leeds, I think, and for a few £100, they'll take you on these package tours round to some of the
brilliant.
You had
sort of super pub crawl.
Yeah, so you had the Standing Order in Derby, the Chief Justice in Keswick, Penrith, the Dogbeck, and you could go to the Northwestern in Liverpool, the Winter Gardens in Harrogate, and the Velvet Coaster in Blackpool.
Brilliant.
And it's been such a success that this company, is Crossways Travel, are actually going to broaden it out. So all across the country, you'll be able to do these sightseeing tours and finish every day.
What was the name of the one in Penrith? You said
Penrith is the Dogbeck.
And what did they say when they went in there, John? What was the demand? We want the finest wines.
I did think about
the humanity. We want them here and we want them now.
I wish that it had actually featured in the film. I was hoping to have that trivia for you.
Brilliant. Yeah. John and I are both big fans of With an L Now. Listen, thank you. I'll let you get back to working hard on The Sun tomorrow. You can read all those stories tomorrow and indeed online at thesun.co.uk. We'll take many more of your comments in just a minute. Mark in Selby says, no government wishes to lift the lid off the issue, which is rape gangs. For London not to be infected by the gangs is impossible. What is not known is the scale, though I bet it is horrendous. Lee also says, remember being told up that sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And Earl says on the Jess Phillip statement, Jeff says, with regards to the three-way leadership challenge in the Green Party, isn't this like three fleas arguing over who owns the dog? Says Jeff. Zach Polanski is now the leader of the Green Party, a man who told The Sun a few years ago that women could think their way to having a larger chest. Well, our biggest competition to date is now live. We're giving you the chance to win a whopping £25,000 plus Oasis tickets. 2 lucky winners will win a pair of Oasis tickets when they return to Wembley on the 27th of September. Plus, that's not all. Alongside the tickets, we're giving one listener the chance to win that huge £25,000. For all the details on how to enter this amazing competition, listen up right now.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word cash to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission. Or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 3338. All entries must be received by the 19th of September at 9 a.m. This is a TalkSport limited promotion run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Who would you choose to replace Keir Starmer?
Well, there's three candidates just hedging my bet. I mean, it's Angela. If Angela's the favourite, then Wes Streeting's the other one, and the third one, who's slightly less obvious to your viewers, I'm sure, is Shabana Mahmood. Those are the three that I think have the best political instincts. I have my preferences, but I'm not going to reveal because I'll probably change in 3 months' time anyway. But those are the three.
90% of British people will never live in a brand new house with underfloor heating, and it just should not be the case that you can break the law and within days be housed in a place like, well, not days, they've obviously spent some time in a hotel and then they'd be moved to, but this also opens up the secondary question that Labour are banging on about closing these hotels. But then the number of people arriving are at record levels. So they might close the hotels, but these people will still be being housed on the taxpayers' expense. And where are they going to move? They're going to move to houses of multiple occupancy.
Some very litigious trans activists who will go after Graeme for the rest of his life, it seems. They won't leave him alone, like he hasn't suffered enough for speaking his mind. Yeah. And they are just people who want to ruin his life, simply because he thinks that women should be able to have single-sex spaces and children shouldn't be told that they're born in the wrong body. And it's just devastating to see the fact that he was already on his way, that he was coming
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Tarquin's given us a ring. Tarquin's on the line. What would you like to say?
Cardi P, you're the boy for me. You are so brilliant, sir. I mean, everyone knows you are, but today you absolutely surpassed yourself.
Oh, stop it. Oh, stop it, Tarquin.
Linda over her trying to being disingenuous about not knowing the law about being able to comment on a non-sub judice case. It was priceless. Well done, sir.
Well, thank you, Tarquin. Anything else to say about what you had to say? It's very nice of you to be nice about me, but any other points on the interview or anything like that?
Honestly, I mean, I say that in like almost like a monologue, strapline. But it was impressive because not many media companies these days do that, and you're.
Well, she was just talking nonsense, Tarquin, really, and we just can't have that.
Well, I think that the fact that you pulled her up, a lot of people would have just let her have a piece and moved on, because it's for an easy life. But you didn't. You showed us what proper. Yeah.
Thank you, Tarquin. Much appreciated. Do appreciate that.
You, sir.
Thank you very much. George is in Horsham and wants to talk about Graeme Linehan as well. George, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, good evening, Peter. Thank you very much for having me on. Yes, it is about Graeme Linehan, but just before I come into that, I'd just like to say that my grandfather, my father fought in the First and Second World Wars respectively, and I hate to think what they would be thinking about the state of this nation. But anyway, going back to Graeme Linehan, I just want to know what is the difference as far as the police are concerned with what Joe Brandt said about throwing acid into
Nigel Farage's face. Yeah.
And what about Bob?
Well, that's worse, actually. Do you know what, Joe? I'm gonna actually sort of slightly disagree with you and say that I think it's worse. He said, "Why didn't they throw acid in Nigel Farage's face?" That is a targeted thing about one specific person, and there was no case to answer there, whereas he was talking about a hypothetical situation. Graeme Linehan was. If you look at what he actually said, he was actually talking about a hypothetical situation where a trans person came into a women's only space. If a trans identified male is in a female only space, he is committing a violent abusive act, said Graeme Linehan. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. So I would argue what Joe Brandt did was actually worse.
No, I agree entirely with you, but also another example. What about the duo Bob Villain? Nothing ever happened to them.
No arrests, hasn't happened, no arrest, investigation ongoing. In fact, what we're going to do between now and tomorrow is we're going to get in touch with Avon and Somerset Police and see what's going on with that investigation. At 4 o'clock tomorrow when I'm back on air, around that time I'm going to let you know what has happened then, because Graeme Linehan's been arrested, but as far as I know, Pascal Robinson Foster hasn't. Listen, I appreciate your points, George, thanks for them. John in North Yorkshire is next on the line. John, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, Peter. Just some comment on Peter Blexley. Now, that man is so worth listening to.
Totally agree.
I joined the force in 71, and luckily I saw the end of the old school bobbies, and I learnt more from them than I did to any textbook.
Yeah.
And Peter Blexley just reminds me of that kind of Bobby. You know, I remember.
I know what you mean.
One little incident. I remember one New Year's Eve, I met up with one of the old. Actually, he was called Peter as well.
Right.
And there was a lot of people gathered around the cenotaph in the town centre. And what they were doing, they were messing about. They were happy. They were enjoying themselves, climbing up it and that. And Pete said to me, he says, "What we'll do, John," he says, "we'll clear off." He says, "Because if we stop them, you know, we might need them one day, and we'll be rotten devils if we stop them." He said, "We're going to walk away, and if anything happens, you know, nothing will be said."
Well, indeed. John, listen, thanks for that. Thanks for your thoughts on that. And Dawn in Chelmsford's been in touch as well. It says, "I can't help feeling that certain public figures potentially involved in the grooming gang scandal are above the law." Jess Phillips made a particularly lacklustre speech, which sets a depressing tone, says Dawn in Chelmsford. Well, one person who sets not a depressing tone, quite the opposite, an upbeat and happy tone, especially when dealing with so many dreadful things in the news, is, of course, the marvellous Mark Dolan, who is with us between 7 and 9.
Well, I'm a plastic Paddy and you're the real thing.
Right.
But the Irish have a bit of a glass half full mentality, don't they? And I would argue the Brits do.
Right.
And I think that we are a generally jolly group, a jolly community.
I think people want to see the positives, and what we get from a lot of our viewers and listeners is saying things are dreadful, but we want them to be better, and we know how they can be better.
This is it, and it is the British way. You know, we're outward looking, we're very global, we're a very dynamic population, and yet people are being beaten down. I mean, you've got a war on several fronts. The cost of living crisis. I mean, no one talks about inflation, which is almost 4%. People are having a miserable time just trying to buy a couple of grams of butter from their local Tesco Express. So you've got the economic problems. Then you've got this battle for a sense of nationhood. We've got a story that we'll be covering today, which I know has been on your radar, which is the University of Leicester. We've paid for this nonsense about the idea that the countryside is racist and that it's overwhelmingly white.
The countryside is racist.
Yes, it is. It's riven with
I mean, I literally sent a meme to a friend of mine about a discussion on another programme, not on this network, which simply said, "Is cheese racist?" I mean, is anything not racist?
No,
Are your glasses racist?
No, well, I think they definitely... No, because they're rose tinted, so everyone is a certain shade, and it's a shade of rose. But the bottom line is that it's amazing universities are dividing us to this extent. This is the University of Leicester's Centre for Hate Studies. Okay, and the only thing
it's like when you get the UN rapporteur on torture who says there has been torture. It's like, well, isn't that kind of your job though?
You're
to
so
say
right.
that.
It's like Tony Blair, peace envoy, isn't it? You know, you have to think of the sheer irony of this. And actually, I think all we've learned from the University of Leicester's Centre for Hate Studies is that they hate Britain. Can we just appreciate the fact that our countryside is rural, then we've got our cities. The cities are naturally more diverse, but the British people are generally very open and very tolerant. But there's a narrative coming along now that somehow there is an antipathy to immigration or any of those things. Not at all. It is just that people are at breaking point. You know, the migrant hotels, the scale of legal net migration is something that no one voted for, and even Keir Starmer himself has condemned it. So how do we fix it? We've got to sort that out. Well, we'll be sorting that out in the next few hours, I've got to say. I'm looking forward to that. Are we demonising people of colour now, though? Did you see that clip from a guy, an Asian British businessman being interviewed on Sky News, being heckled and attacked by a passerby?
I missed that.
Racial slurs. And well, I don't blame you missing it. It's all on Sky. No one watches it. They're all watching Talk.
I hope
Peter
so.
Cardwell.
I hope so.
But are we, you know, have we thrown the baby out of the bathwater? Are we now demonising migrants? We'll get into that one. And of course, the hot topic on your show, brilliant show, by the way, Graeme Linehan. Is he guilty of any crime? He's obviously made tongue-in-cheek and, in some people's opinions, offensive remarks about trans people. But free speech